everyone. I believe I am currently live. As per usual, this is that awkward phase at the beginning where I have no idea if you can hear me or not. So the first chance you get, can you guys confirm that the video and the audio are at least acceptable? Audio should be good, video should be acceptable. But yeah, and also to get this out of the way, of course, the stream will be uploaded to YouTube after the Q&A session is over. So if you miss anything and you want to watch it, you totally can. But the little preamble here, while I wait to hear back from you guys on the video and audio quality, is that yeah, all we're gonna do is a Q&A. I did this recently, and you guys seem to really enjoy it. And my plans for today were kind of screwed, so I thought, what the hell? I'll talk to you guys for like, I don't know, an hour, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody says that the video is fine, the audio is fine, the jersey is still not fine, and it never will be. Although you can kind of see, let me see if I can, right there, you can kind of, that's Derek Rose's signature on that. So there you go. All right, guys. So let's just do some Q&A for a while and see what happens. We have Scott the Canadian here helping to moderate. I don't know which other moderators may or may not pop in. Always good to see some of you. We have a greetings from Germany from Gray. Greetings from the U.S. And obviously Scott would, I'm sure, greet you from Canada. So perfect Welsh, either way. You haven't watched me in a while. Well, welcome back. Okay, so the first question we have here is Mystic Manification. GameCube versus Wii U for fun and collecting. Currently, I would say the Wii U, because a lot of that stuff is on clearance and nobody really wants it, so you can still get it for relatively cheap. GameCube has a more well-known library, a more complete list, but it's more of a challenge because we already know which ones are the expensive and hard ones at this point. But there's definitely more titles on the GameCube. It just depends on like what kind of set you want to get. Like personally, I have no interest in like a full GameCube set. I just don't. But I would like to get maybe someday all of the GameCube titles that were not released on the original Xbox. So I wouldn't go so far to call that exclusives because a lot of them were on the PlayStation 2 or maybe even the Dreamcast. Though I probably wouldn't get games that were also on the Dreamcast. Like there was a Donald Duck game that was on the Dreamcast and on the GameCube. Probably don't need the GameCube version, but even though it wasn't on the Xbox. So I might get the GameCube games that simply didn't exist on either the Dreamcast or the Xbox. And that's over 100 something. I'm nowhere near doing that. Do I play MOBAs? I do not. Greetings from Portugal. Greetings from the U.S. again. Yeah, everybody say hi. We got all sorts of, we got a lot of people from around the world here. I try to do these streams around this time because it's good for the Europeans. I feel like you guys get screwed on a lot of streams because a lot of streams come out of North America and they're always later in our time zone, so you guys never really get to see them. So I tried to help you guys out with that. And at the same time, I know it's the day after Christmas here, so a lot of Americans and Canadians, I'm sure, are not really doing much today. So I figured this would be kind of good. The only people get screwed is the Australians. I'm sorry. At least according to my analytics, that's the only regions that ever watch me. So my apologies to the Australians. Scott says, my question is, when do you plan on fixing that jersey for those of us who have OCD? If he was still on the Bulls, I might care more. Maybe I'll get a Dwayne Wade jersey and replace it, but I'd have to meet Dwayne Wade and have him sign it. See, that's the key about that jersey. I'd have to take it down. It's just a thing I would have to do. And the problem is it's not going to stay. It's just kind of, the only thing holding it is like the pressure of the frame. It's not like I competently put it in there, you know? We got greetings from Mexico. We got people from all over the place. Great. Wii or CDI? I think I actually discussed this on the previous Q&A. I give the CDI more of a pass because it wasn't intending to be a game console. It just happened to be able to do it. Surely there are more fun experiences on the Wii, but the Wii is more annoying to try and play because you recognize that some of the games are fantastic, but you have to use this stupid magic wand that utterly fucking ruins the experience. Whereas nothing on the CDI, I'm actually like, oh god, I wish I could play this, but this controller is just so bad. The controller, I mean, yes, they're bad controllers, but there was like a Super Nintendo style controller. That's fine. It's just the software was shit because it wasn't meant to be a game console. Did we get snow? Excuse me. Did we get snow in Chicago? Yes, we do. All the time. We have some right now, although it didn't really snow much the last couple of days. We had like this big rainstorm deal, but whatever. No, I'm not currently spending time with Mrs. Claus. She's in Portugal. She's at home. I'm here. I saw her last month when I went to Paris. Hugues Free. Sorry, I don't know how you pronounce that. But yeah, welcome back. This is the dude running the In the Line of Fire Kickstarter. It's a brand new Dreamcast game that might happen. I'm going to give it a quick plug because it's totally worth it. He's got a Kickstarter for this game. It's an FPS, a 3D FPS. And if they reach a certain stretch goal, not only does the game come out, I mean, the game is being made for the Dreamcast. It's not like an extra, like they'll do a Dreamcast version if they hit a certain tier. Like this is designed for the Dreamcast. And if they hit a certain stretch goal, they'll actually donate their engine to other developers so we can have more 3D games. So if you want to check out the Kickstarter, I highly recommend it. Again, it's called the In the Line of Fire. Look it up, In the Line of Fire Kickstarter. You can help make not only this Dreamcast game happen, but you can make many more possible upgraded games happen. I'm sure he can tell you more about it in the description, though. And feel free, dude, tell him whatever you need to tell him. What's my favorite console to collect for, ever or currently? Ever, I mean, I don't know. I guess I might say it was a lot of fun to collect for the Dreamcast because that was the first one that I really went all in, and I was just like, I'm getting everything, you know? Currently, maybe the Xbox, just because it's cheap. And there's, you know, there's games released in all regions, and there's just fun stuff to find. That would probably be it. But it's it's getting harder to find original Xbox stuff. Not because it's rare, but because it sells so poorly. A lot of stores don't even bother stocking it anymore, which is unfortunate. Did I get any presents yesterday in regards to Christmas? No, not really. And the reason for that is I tell people not to get me stuff for Christmas. And unlike, thank you, very appreciative people on the channel, but unlike that, my family actually listens to me when I say that. They actually don't do it because I'm just like, I get stuff all year round. I don't need that, you know. It's okay. My mom got me a couple bags of coffee, mostly as a gag gift. I did not get a beard comb, though I do have one. It's right here. There you go. Beard comb. You guys can all watch that. But see, it's not really thick right now. I had it kind of trimmed, you know, for the holidays and stuff. But yeah, I do actually have a beard comb. So there you go. SSX or Tony Hawk? I'm gonna have to go with Tony Hawk, but that's based on the older games. Obviously, things like Tony Hawk 5 were not really playable. So we did a video on Tony Hawk 5. It was like, I think it was Obama Plays Tony Hawk 5. It's up on Machinima if you want to check it out. That was a brutally hard video to make because of how awful that game was. Like, our actor had nothing to work off of because it was like trying to do commentary over a tech demo and make it funny. It's like, it's just not interesting enough. Favorite video game composer? You know, I'm gonna struggle with that one because I'm not sure I can name any offhand. I would have to actually think about that a lot longer. Have I tried Daydream VR? No. Is that specifically a game? Because I've played VR things. I played some PlayStation VR and I played the Oculus Rift a bit, but I didn't play, as I don't recall playing Daydream. I think I also used the HTC Vive when I was out in San Francisco most recently at Ubisoft's headquarters. They had us play this game. But I think they were using Vives. Have you heard of Steven Universe? No, I have not. When did you get your first Dreamcast, and do you still have it? I got it the day of launch, September 9th, 1999. I actually did a whole video talking about that, actually. So the whole story's in there. And yes, I still have it. What's my favorite Elder Scrolls game? I'd have to go Skyrim just because I make a Skyrim for Pimps. I make a show called Skyrim for Pimps on my other channel, so it's kind of, you know, it opened up my imagination in a lot of ways. I have coffee sporting in here in my Force Awakens thermos. This was a Christmas gift, but last year. I also have, in case I need it, I also have lemon water in my AT&T water bottle. I'm not sure I ever told this story. Once AT&T came to visit my like apartment complex, and they were like, "Hey, you know, like if you want to meet up with AT&T and talk about your network service and your broadband package and all that stuff, come down. There's gonna be like a meeting." And my former roommate and I were just like, we want to go talk to him about upgrading our internet access because they were mostly there to show off television packages. I didn't care about that. But anyway, we went down, and the guy had used like a party room to host. He had like tons of food set up, and he had like giveaways, like all these bottles. And he was like, I've been in here for like an hour, and you were the first 2 people to show up. And he was like gonna leave in a half hour. He's like, you literally take anything you want off this table, because I'm just gonna throw it all away. So I got some water bottles. They had sewing kits with AT&T's logo on it for some reason, and then we came away with a bunch of pies and food. It was weird, but it was fine with us. I tried the Oreo Big Crunch bar. No, I have not. I'm not familiar with what that is exactly. Is that like Cadbury? Because Cadbury in the States sucks, so I wouldn't recommend getting it here even if we have it. Oh yeah, the guy who did the music for Streets of Rage, that guy is talented. Yuzo Koshiro, according to the comments. That guy was really good. I have the vinyl records of those that Data Discs put out. Those are awesome. Yeah. First home computer ever. Home computer. Like, okay, so when I was a kid, I think it was like 1991, maybe even earlier. Maybe it was 1990. This is when nobody had PCs, and I know the kids in the stream are like, was that ever a thing? Yeah, nobody had PCs. My mom's office gave my mom a computer for certain aspects of doing work at home, which she never really figured out. But it came with certain like abilities to play certain basic games. I mean, I don't mean just like solitaire, but like you could install those big floppy disk things on it, and we used to play a lot of games on that. There was like some Mickey Mouse game, I remember. There was a Barbie game, believe it or not. I think the Barbie game was ported to the NES, but the PC version, not surprisingly, was better. I mean, it's a Barbie game, but whatever. But the only aspect of that computer that I still have is the original keyboard, which is a tank. It's not in this room. It's in the other room, but it's OG as fuck. Remy, my former podcast buddy, is an admin. He is in the chat. Be careful. What's up, man? He's dangerous. He's French. They are dangerous. But it's good to have you here, dude. Hershey's makes the... Here's the sad truth about Hershey's. They're an American institution, but their chocolate sucks. It's terrible. And the only reason I think that it's still around is that people don't want to... They just remember it being a certain way, so they don't really want to improve it, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Kind of like what Coca-Cola tried to replace Coke with New Coke, and everyone hated it. I think Hershey's afraid of improving their base chocolate formula because people would hate it. Am I a meme? Not that I'm aware of, though I have seen people do that in a couple of situations. I've seen my face, and says things like, talks about wrong video cables, triggered, stuff like that. The only time I ever legitimately was surprised to see myself as a meme, where it wasn't shown to me as the joke, it was just something I saw, was someone for some reason took a screen cap of my cleaning a PS1 video, like the fat model PS1, and you saw my hands, and it just said something like, what was your first game console? Like, that's not a joke. And then just for some reason in the center, that was my hands in that picture, and it was just in like my Facebook feed. It wasn't directed at me. That was the only time I think I've ever been memed. And I was like, okay, that's not a very good one, but sure. Would I recommend getting a Wii U? Ultimately, yes. But just because it's obviously going out the door. It's not going to be worth the full price. But the game library on it is fantastic. So I highly recommend getting it at some point. Just if you're going to, I mean, Nintendo apparently is already recalling a lot of them, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So you might not be able to get a new one anymore. And even if you found one, I wouldn't recommend paying $300 for it. Which do you prefer to play more, PS4 or OG Xbox? OG Xbox, because I don't have to constantly update it. I don't have to delete my stuff off of it. You guys will hear this later, but I'm a little pissed off at the PS4 right now. But you'll hear that later in a different video. Do you have Pepsi Man? I do not. That is a PS1 game, I believe, exclusively in Japan. Pepsi Man was a character, like a mascot, that they used to sell Pepsi over there, and he got his own game. It's a really weird game. I have played it before, though. But no, I don't actually own a copy of it. We got a guy saying Glowcat says he does work at Best Buy and they no longer sell Wii U's. Exactly. Nintendo recalled them, but I don't know to what extent. I mean, obviously to make space for the Switch, I assume. But at the same time, I wonder if they're going to put them back out with rebundled with other stuff to try and just get rid of clearance or put them on clearance and get rid of inventory or something. I don't know what their plan is. What kind of movie collection do I have? I have a pretty decent Blu-ray movie and Blu-ray television collection, as well as a DVD collection. Every time I get the chance to upgrade from a DVD to a Blu-ray, provided it's within budgetary reasons, I do it. Have I ever played Hong Kong 97 or Little Red Hood on NES? No, but I'm familiar with them. Panda Express or KFC? Panda Express for days, son. KFC's fucking gross. And that might be sacrilege, but here's the thing. If you ever have like actual southern fried chicken, like in the South, you'll never eat KFC. And if you find a good quality place that makes fried chicken in the North, you will never eat KFC. I grew up in Chicago, and there was this chain called Brown's Chicken, which was essentially this guy from the South who brought all his recipes with him, and he made his own chain of, like, fried chicken. And it's infinitely fucking better. KFC's fucking gross. I know that's not something everyone's going to agree with, but go to a real fried chicken place. You'll never go back to KFC unless you absolutely have to. Am I pregnant? I'm sorry to say that I'm not. I use protection, so that's probably why. Yeah, we already got people pissed at my KFC comment. Sorry, dude, I don't like it. Although I love that they have this chocolate cake there that I admit is fucking fantastic. Shenmu movie update. I assume you're talking about the documentary? No, again, I'm not responsible for that movie. I was just in it. It's a documentary. It's up to Adam Scipione and his team to determine what its status is, when it'll be released, etc. They do update it. I know that they went to Japan and stuff and did a lot of work for it. And I know that at some point it will be available for purchase. It is not a free distributed thing. You have to buy it at some point because a lot of money has gone into producing it. Do I like Portillo's? Yes, I do, though I don't eat them very often. Portillo's, I believe, is a Chicago chain. I'm not sure if it goes much beyond Chicago. I know they're up in like Rockford, Illinois, but that's still Illinois. They have this insane as well chocolate cake. That chocolate cake, if you knew it was in it, you'd probably never eat it, but it's fantastic. One of the things that is in it, just to give you some idea, is like a whole tub of mayonnaise. But it's fucking good. Steve Carell did a Brown's Chicken commercial. That I was unaware of. Do I think the Wii U is going to be hard to find in the future? Greetings from Egypt. Dude, Rami, apparently that's your name. Sorry if I mispronounced that. You are probably the first person ever to contact me from Egypt. Welcome. Greetings from the United States. I think the Wii U, I think its software will be hard to find. I think it'll be very similar to the Dreamcast in a lot of ways. For a while there, Wii U's will probably be worthless, and then at some point people are going to start kind of keeping them. And then the games themselves, I think, will be hard to find, especially certain titles, just because a lot of them had low print runs. A lot of them were hard to find even from the get-go, and not too many people are actually actively collecting it. And I think at some point people will when they realize it's not a super internet-dependent console to actually use. And it's Nintendo, so their name alone adds value to it. Remy asks, am I afraid Shenmue 3 could actually not be very good? Yeah, of course. It could suck, and I hope it doesn't. I don't want it to be the Phantom Menace of the Shenmue universe. But I'd say more accurately Attack of the Clones. Phantom Menace was highly disappointing, but I'm more entertained by it than I am by Attack of the Clones. But I did multiple Star Wars videos. No reason to talk about that here. Why is Lumalnati so great? That's a pizza chain in Chicago as well. Deep dish pizza. You'd have to eat it. And it depends. Like I fucking love it. It's my absolute favorite pizza place on the planet. But unless you have it, you don't really know. I think the only person I know in this thread that's eaten it for sure is Scott the Canadian, although I don't know where he is. He ironically might be off eating other foods. Do I have a new one? I do not. It's Samsung's failed attempt at a console. What do you think of Chicago and Driver 2? Hello from Australia. Hi, greetings from the US. I don't think I played Driver 2. Chicago doesn't get much love in video games. I think the last time it really did was Watch Dogs 1. and it just doesn't come up that much. Same with all the movies, but that's starting to change with movies. Ever since The Dark Knight came out, people are kind of realizing, oh wow, there's this like super city in the middle of the country that most people don't know what it looks like. We should go film stuff there. So now there's a lot of different TV shows that are shot there, a lot of movies, Man of Steel, Transformers 3 and 4, etc. A lot of big movies have been shot here in the last few years. Do I want a Switch? Yes, I do, but I'm only cautiously optimistic at best. Yes, Scott Canadian is still here. Am I a fan of the Valkyria Chronicles series by Sega? I've never really played it because I'm not really into RPGs, but I have it for the PlayStation 3, and I'll probably get the PS4 remake at some point just because Sega, put it in the collection. When will Wii U games get cheap? A lot of the third-party stuff is worthless. The thing with the Wii U is you really had to hit clearance bins at the right time. First-party Nintendo stuff's a lot harder, but you kind of have to keep your eye out because a lot of titles will get discounted briefly and stuff. The problem with Wii U is that it was never successful, so it's not like there's tons of it, and it's not like they're just dying to get rid of it. So I don't know. Do I like the Bulls? Yes, though they were started off amazing this year and then they completely fell apart. So, Chicago Ferris Bueller. Yes, that was shot here. Although that was shot here 30 years ago. Marvel or DC movies? If we're going specifically with movies, you gotta go Marvel for sure. How much hard drive space do you think the Switch needs? We don't even know if it has a hard drive. It may not need it because it uses, we believe, flash-based media. And if that's the case, that might contain any sort of storage requirements. We don't know. Quite the simple truth is we don't know. Why is Donkey Kong Country 2 your fave? It's just, I don't know. I just absolutely fell in love with that platformer. I never liked the first one. I never liked the third one. I have played both of them to completion. They never did much for me, but Donkey Kong Country 2, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things as a kid. You just absolutely fall in love with it. And to this day, I can jump right back into that game and be like, yeah, it's like muscle memory, man. I can just instantly rock that game. 3DO or Jaguar? I assume you're asking which one I think is better. I don't know. I'd probably go with the 3DO. The Jaguar has some games on it I prefer, like Rayman and stuff, but I think the 3DO is more interesting in a lot of ways, and it can do more things. Actually, you know what? You give me Jaguar with the CD, I'm going to go Jaguar CD. I know it sounds dumb, but I have a full Jaguar CD collection, and it can play music CDs. And it is interesting, too, I guess. The 3DO's most interesting aspect is just the insane story about why they ever made it, but I did a video on that, too. Have I ever played Rent-A-Hero for Dreamcast or Xbox? I have both, but due to language barriers, no. There was apparently an English version of that intended for, I don't know if it was going to be Europe or North America or both, but it was never successfully released, though I think a prototype of it leaked, so somebody took the language code out of it and threw it into the final Japanese version. So if you have a modded Xbox, you can actually play that, although I haven't done it through, so I don't know how accurate the translation is. I'm looking to start video game collecting. Any advice to give? Yeah, start with something cheap and something you like. Right now is a great time to buy original Wii or PlayStation 2 because that stuff is worthless. Nobody wants it. They're both consoles I have absolutely no interest in collecting for due to the... Well, first of all, I really don't like the Wii. That's not any surprise. And with the PlayStation 2, its library is far too vast for me to be interested in pursuing it. Like literally just logistically, I'm just not interested in taking up that much space. But they're both very cheap. You basically have to find consoles you like and like enough that you collect, but never start with like the super expensive consoles because unless you have a ton of money, you're never going to get anywhere. Or if it's a small enough library that you're willing to commit that kind of money to just have a small library, you could do that. Wii U, if you want something more modern, Wii U is probably the one to go for right now because relatively small library, relatively cheap, relatively easy to find still. Yeah, but I don't know, personally I would never attempt to get full sets of like Xbox One or PS4 because especially PS4 because there's so many titles on there that I think are like, you know, regional exclusives and have very limited print runs and nobody really knows how many even exist. Or how many of the, like, what games are even where. Like, there's so many games that came out in Europe that we never saw, and I'm sure it's the same here in Japan. Who the fuck even knows? Then there's games that only came out in, like, Hong Kong only. Like, you know that really shitty, like, Resident Evil Umbrella Corps game that everyone panned absolutely? There's a physical PS4 in English copy of that, only released in Hong Kong. It's like, dude, I wouldn't even want to try getting all this shit. Best ever drive, in my opinion. Well, quality of product, they're all the same. Like, I've never had an ever drive where I was like, wow, this one really sucks. Like, they all work really well. So it really just boils down to what console you actually prefer. I think the best bang for your buck with an EverDrive is either the N64 or the Super Nintendo, personally. Though there could be a case made for the Genesis because it also supports 32X and everything. So, and Master System, depending on how you have it connected. So maybe that one. I don't know. Why do I prefer physical over digital? I like to own the things I paid for. When you are purchasing digital things, you're essentially renting a license, and you are at the absolute mercy of that corporation to honor that license until they choose not to. And the thing with that is, you're essentially agreeing that they have the right to take it away from you at any time. And I see this argument all the time where people are like, no, I bought it, it's mine. No, it's not. It's not your property. It functions with their consent. There's games and DLC and movies and all that kind of stuff that are taken down all the time. Things like Ninja Turtles Reshelled or PT. You remember that PlayStation 4 demo for Silent Hills? You don't own that. You just have the right to use it until they see fit to take it away from you. Or if the servers ever go down, which of course they inevitably will, you can't re-download it. If we're arguing that that's property, you have to argue that when they stop supporting it, it is theft. But nobody makes that case. They only argue that case if, like, I have a physical copy and somebody actually steals it from me. Like, what's the difference? Like, if I'm holding, let's say, I don't know, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. I have a physical edition in my hand. Someone takes it from me and runs off. They stole my copy. But if I have the digital one and Ubisoft or Microsoft or Sony or whoever is responsible for that server situation shuts down the server and I can't re-download my game, is that not theft? But we don't make that case. And that's up to the buyer. And it's not, and in my situation, understanding that, I don't want digital versions. I don't support that. I don't even care if other people think like, dude, I'm never going to replay Assassin's Creed 4. I don't care if I can't download it. That's fine. I just wish everyone understood that going in. I just don't like it when people are lied to and they believe that they actually own that. You don't own it. You have the right to use it. It's kind of like you have a Netflix subscription, and all the time you hear every single month, oh, these are the movies that were added, these are the movies that were removed. But with that, we all understand it's a rental. I don't own this. I'm just watching it temporarily. But for some reason with video games, it's like, no, I own it. No, you don't. You don't own that shit. And I simply disagree with that concept. So there you go. Why do I never review handhelds? I don't have the same passion for handhelds that I do with consoles, but at the same time, I was simply going through all the consoles first. So I'm sure I will eventually do handhelds. What is the best racing games? Personally, I've always liked farcical racing. I don't like things like Gran Turismo or Forza. They're too real. I've never wanted to drive those kind of cars. I'm not really into cars, so it doesn't do anything for me. But when it's farcical, I get more out of it. Things like Mario Kart, Sonic Racing, Transformed or whatever, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for the Dreamcast, N64. Those type of racing games I've always thought were fantastic. But when I can drive like, ooh, it's a Maserati, or I don't even know that many cars, a Lamborghini, I'm like, who gives a shit? Fucking Deano the Legend 87, welcome. Why the fuck didn't you message me, dude? You owe me a message. You're supposed to be making videos. Everybody go to his channel and tell him he has to start making videos. I used to watch this dude like 8 years ago. I'm going to totally kiss your ass right now. I used to watch this dude like 8 years ago. He was one of the big inspirations for my channel. And then just one day he just stops. He just stops making videos. And he never came back. And I want him to come back. And he said in the previous stream that he would contact me and we'd talk about him making videos. But he never contacted me. Bad Deano. But anyway, no, hi, nice to see you. Why do I live in Chicago? Because this is where my mother grew up, and this is where she stayed, and this is where I was raised. There you go. Have I ever wanted to design my own video games? Yes, in like middle school, before I understood like what actually goes into that kind of thing. Like I always was more interested in the story aspect of it. I was like, here's the stories and things I would want to accomplish, not ever the programming, etc. And then I realized I was more suited for film and entertainment of that kind, not so much video games. Deanno's lying and says he's from Dubai. You are lying. You didn't add me on Skype. I would know. You gotta message me on YouTube, Deanna. I'm serious. Sankwich, what's up, dude? That's Chip. He's the co-star of my podcast. You guys should know him well. Actually, the podcast that he and I do, it's a Patreon podcast. If you're a Patreon backer, you get access to it early, at like the beginning of the month. But, if you don't want to support the Patreon, which is fine, I don't require that of anybody, it comes out later in the month, and it comes out tomorrow, so you guys can check that out. But, it's basically Chip and I do that as just a thank you for you guys supporting, for at least for the Patreon backers, for supporting the Patreon, and ultimately you guys get to enjoy it too if you want. Although I noticed that there's like not a lot of people listen to it. You guys really should. It's fun. And in the description of it, like I give you time code. You can skip to subjects that are interesting to you, etc. So you guys, I would request if you could, please check it out. We, really enjoy making it. So we really enjoy the people who actually like to listen to it. So thank you for that. Is pizza bulletproof? Not that I'm aware of. Jug, I believe is the way you write the story. Let us design and make the game. I'm right here. I appreciate the offer, but I've kind of moved past that point. Because now I work too much on film and video production. I would never have the time to get into like indie game production. I just don't have it. He says he's working in Dubai and he's been there for the last 3 months. Well, go home and Skype me. Bad Deanno. Dopey the Gamer says greetings from Chicago. My question is, will you always live in Chicago, or will you move somewhere else? I've lived here since I was 2 years old. My mother lived in New York City for a while, and during my first couple of years, that's where I was living. But aside from that, I've always lived in Chicago, and I have no desire to leave. I've been to a lot of places, a lot of cities, and not only in the United States, but in other countries. And I fucking love it here. If I couldn't live here for some reason, and we're assuming I had to stay in the United States, my second choice would be Seattle. I think Seattle's fucking awesome. I really like it there. I really like Los Angeles a lot. If we're going outside of the U.S., Toronto is fucking great. Love it up there. If I was in Europe for some reason, I'd probably pick Dublin, actually. So there you go. Thoughts on Star Wars Episode 8? Well, okay. Hopefully, Carrie Fisher's okay. I'm sure you guys heard she had a heart attack. She's apparently in stable condition now, which is good. I believe she finished all her material for it, so I doubt it will be affecting that movie in any way. But hopefully, she pulls through for just because she's a human being. You want her to live, but hopefully that doesn't have any sort of impact on it either. But I'm hopeful of that movie being better than Force Awakens. I liked Force Awakens upon first initial viewing and a couple of viewings after, but then I started seeing more issues with it, and now I'm to the point where I like it, but I don't really like it anywhere near as much as I did, and it fell kind of really far down my list of Star Wars films. And that's an interesting subject in of itself to rank, I guess, but I'm not sure anybody really wants to talk about that, so I won't bother. Chicago is landlocked. No, it's not. We're next to Lake Michigan. What the hell are you talking about? It's the biggest lake contained inside of North America for a single country. There's 5 Great Lakes, 4 of which are split between the U.S. and Canada. One, Lake Michigan, is exclusively within the United States. So no, it's not even close to landlocked. Adam, are you glad that the DC is still going? I was referring to Dreamcast. Yeah, of course. Hell yeah. I'm still astonished that I can be talking about that. That in 2016, now upcoming in 2017, we have more Dreamcast projects underway. It's just awesome. What would you do if Shenmue 3 was announced? Make the video that I made 2 years ago when it was announced. What do you mean, what would I do? Did you hear about Reload Games closing down over a year ago in the UK? Yes, that was unfortunate. Reload Games was a store. I did a video on it in like 2014. And then I think they closed, obviously sometime last year. So this year when I was back there, I couldn't go. Ben and I don't know if he's in there, Shenmu, so he and I were going to go, and I actually tell him, like, no, dude, they don't exist anymore. And we looked it up just to confirm. No, they didn't exist. That's unfortunate. It's sad to see, like, a good game store go out of business. Why don't I move to Portugal? I have no desire to live in Portugal. Plus, I'm not an EU citizen anyway, so, like, the most I can stay there without doing a ton of paperwork would be 3 months per year. And that's all of the EU, not just Portugal. Doesn't Chicago have crime problems? Yes, of course. Everywhere does. It's a super city, dude. There's like, what, 4 million people in the city proper, plus all the suburbs. Like, all cities have crime. I realize that a lot of people believe that it's a war zone. You're going to die everywhere you go. That's fucking stupid as shit. That's just like really bad media reporting on dumb shit. So there's gang violence all in like one southern area of the city where no one goes. It's between two gangs or multiple gangs, whatever. And yes, admittedly, that sucks, but it doesn't really affect the rest of the city all that much. Yes, I know Mrs. Claus is in Portugal. She would prefer to be in the US. Do you think the Switch will be Nintendo's Dreamcast? I assume in the sense that it will be really good, but no one supports it, and then they'll go under? Is that what you're implying? If so, hard to say what the quality of the console will be. I don't think Nintendo will go under, but they may cease to be a hardware manufacturer at that point. If like Strike 3, you're out. You know, if the market doesn't trust you anymore, it's hard to recover from that. And the Wii, as successful as it was, it damaged them intensely. People like hardcore gamers, like people who actually follow gaming news, you know, kind of like told Nintendo to fuck off after the Wii. It was like, wow, they really made a shitty product, and that thing was bad. The people who bought it were all the people that couldn't love them back. You know, they were the mobile market. That's what we call it now. You know, people who play Candy Crush all day, etc. And that market wasn't going to transition with them. And you saw it in the Wii U. The people who bought the Wii U were either people who kind of got duped into it or people who recognized that it was really, really good. The general market didn't follow them, and a lot of people were so burned from the Wii they wanted nothing to do with the Wii U. So the Switch is their attempt to kind of reverse that. And hopefully they succeed in that, because after that, I don't know if they can. But I'm not saying they're going out of business. I'm just saying they may not be able to do hardware anymore. They might just be like, fuck it, we'll just do third party. When are you shaving your beard? I just trimmed it. I have no intention of actually shaving it off anytime soon. Why do you hate SNES? I don't. It's my third favorite console ever. What the hell are you talking about? What's the worst game I've ever played? Ooh, that's a tough one. I can tell you the most disappointing game was Twisted Metal 3. Worst game ever. I don't know. That's tough, because I try to go out of my way not to play really bad stuff. It would have been probably some sort of like tech demo shit, you know, stuff that I'm not even really necessarily sure would count. Man, I swear, if you gave me more time, I'd probably come up with something, but for some reason I just don't have one off the top of my head. Will Sega ever make another console? No, never. The all you get out of them, at least as far as consoles go, is them licensing the right to continue to make Genesis clones and Master System clones, especially in Brazil. And that's not new consoles. It's just shit. Don't buy those. They suck. So there you go. No, they're never making another console. Absolutely never. How close am I to a full Wii U set? I have like most of the Japanese exclusives. I think I have all of the PAL exclusives. And I think I'm just missing a decent like handful of the North American titles. So relatively close. Do we think we'll ever see a new console made by someone other than Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft? Possibly. It depends on how you define a console. Like if you're talking about things like the Ouya and stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if you see more shit like that. But if you're talking about like a legitimate fourth competitor to do the conventional console model, probably not, because I'm not really sure consoles, at least the way we know them, are going to be around much longer. I think they're going to become more of an all digital service in the future. So without like, I don't think anybody really wants to jump in and get into the physical media game at this point. So some sort of game device, certainly someone else could do that. I mean, Google could do that right now. Apple could do that, but I don't think anybody's going to jump in and make a new conventional game console. Do I hate the periwinkle blue Wii U cases? No, I actually like them. They make them stand out as a more, it's not confusing when you look over it. Like, oh, that's a Wii U set. Like it's easy to tell. Mr. Vestek, what's up, man? Are you excited for Sonic Mania? Not really. I was until I found out that it was going to be digital only. I was going to get that collector set and everything, but then I was like, oh, fuck it. So I'm not getting it now. Chip would like to know my favorite kind of cheese. Chip, why did you spell favorite like the European Canadian way? What's wrong with you? The superfluous U is not needed. I don't know. Probably one of the cheeses we had down in Austin, dude. The cheese down there was insane. I don't know. If I have to go with some sort of answer, I guess I'll just say cheddar, but I don't know. Do I have a good collection of Sega Master System games? For an American, yes, because Sega Master System stuff here is really hard to find. But like by European standards, it would be a joke. Do I enjoy the Power Stone games? Yes, I do. That was always a game where I really wish we had a third one, but that never happened. Have I ever been mugged before? No, I have not. You ordered the collector's set of Sonic Mania? Why? I mean, I know the statue and all that was great, but then when I found out it was digital only, I was like, fuck that. You can't blame your keyboard for putting an extra U in there. He's a liar. Remy, you know what's up. You know Chip's lying. Yeah, Chip is amazing. I agree. Do I like sushi? Yes, I do. That's actually what after the stream's over, I'm going to eat that. That's going to be lunch there. Did I go to college? Yes, I did. I went to Columbia College Chicago, film school. 4 years, graduated with a film degree. Do I like Seaman on the Dreamcast? I didn't play it as much as I should have. It's such a weird game to try and get into. I do have all the sequels and stuff that were put out in Japan only, the Christmas edition and the upgrade edition and 2001 edition. I even have Seaman 2 for the PlayStation 2. But those are unplayable because I don't speak Japanese. So the only one I could really get into is the Dreamcast American version. And it's just, I don't know. I don't really have the patience for it. Adam, as an intelligent guy, how do you tolerate being asked so many dumbass questions like this one? I don't know. I opened up by saying I would like to have a live Q&A, which means I'll try to answer pretty much anything you guys throw at me. Granted, obviously there's a lot of comments that just keep rolling past. I'm sorry if I miss it. But for the most part, I'm willing to answer whatever you say. There are some dumb questions where you just kind of mentally roll your eyes and move on. But for the most part, no, I don't mind at all. I enjoy it. I mean, there are troll comments like, will you show us your penis? But you try to come up with, retorts, stuff like that. But no, in general, I love this. Do I like anime? No, I do not. I think I've talked about this before. I can't stand the actual animation style. It gives me a massive headache and it drives me nuts. And I know that's obviously not the popular opinion amongst everyone, but it's just how I feel. Like I can't stand it. So I say enjoy. I don't need it. You can have it. Do I use chopsticks with my sushi? Yes, I do. Can I fix the jersey? Not anytime soon. Scott the Canadian was here and he couldn't make me fix it. Isn't there a Seaman Dreamcast console? Yes, there is. Japan only. Quite valuable. I believe it's red with like multicolored buttons. Do you think the evil within is what Resident Evil 4 could have been? Possibly. Resident Evil 4 was by no stretch of the imagination a bad game. In fact, a lot of people really, really love it. My problem with that game was always that it was too drastic of a change in that series for me. I'm very willing to go back and check it out, but like I was playing them in marathon, and after coming off of the previous ones, I was like, all right, let's do more of this, and it was like too different for my taste. And I should have gone back to it, but I never really did. And then I hear, and that wasn't that motivated because after that it was like 5 and 6 are fucking terrible, and all the spin-offs are fucking terrible, except for Revelations, I think was actually really good, but people didn't really know that. Am I getting into any systems that use cassettes? No, as I said in the last stream, the only cassette game I ever bought was Ghostbusters, and that was just for Scott the Canadian, who I think did actually vanish now. When will I do a Mattel Hyperscan video? Probably never. I have no intention of getting a Mattel Hyperscan. Do I like burritos? Yes, I do. Burritos are fucking awesome. Chip will tell you all about burritos, man. Like we we rocked some serious burritos and tacos and barbecue down in Texas. Oh, it was unreal. It's fucking unreal. Yeah, you can get good burritos in Chicago. We actually have a surprisingly high Mexican population. You wouldn't expect it, but we do. But honestly, the best burritos I've ever had are in Los Angeles. They're called wet burritos. They're just big burritos covered in basically slop. You look at it and you think it must be disgusting because it's not an attractive thing to eat, but it's fucking fantastic. Second best would definitely be the ones I had in Austin, and we didn't eat in Dallas, so I don't know about that. But Texas, let's just go generically with Texas. Strika says, "Yo, Adam, finally caught a live Q&A. How would you rank the order of your favorite PlayStation home consoles from favorite to least favorite?" If we're just talking PS1, 2, 3, and 4, I guess my favorite would be the PS1, and then either a swap between the PS3 or PS4. Maybe I'd edge it over to the... I don't know. It like depends on the day you ask me, and I'm gonna do something controversial, probably not surprising to a lot of you. My least favorite of those would be the PlayStation 2, for the simple reason that a lot of my favorite titles on it exist in better versions on other platforms. Like a lot of the best PS2 games, 6th-gen games exist on the Xbox and are better there. Or they exist on the Dreamcast and they are better there. Or they exist on the GameCube and they are better there. And even a lot of their own exclusive titles that were just for the PlayStation 2 were brought over to the PlayStation 3 and upgraded in a lot of ways. So there's not much on the PlayStation 2 that really calls to me. So that's kind of where that sits. Also, I can't ever really forgive it for how awful its video quality is. Like that's insultingly bad. I mean, there's consoles that go back to the late 80s that have a better, cleaner image than the fucking PlayStation 2 does. And I'm not talking about graphics. I'm talking about a clean picture that isn't fuzzy on a television. And if you get past perhaps just the other enjoyment factors of the console you might have had, you know it's true. But for the record, whenever I see comments like, "Oh, no, the PS2 killed the Dreamcast." No, it didn't. Sega killed the Dreamcast. Sega killed it with their incompetent marketing and terrible mistakes throughout the years. That's what killed the Dreamcast, not Sony. Sony had nothing to do with it. Like, they didn't help matters, but it wasn't their fault. That's competition. Do I like hot sauce? Not particularly. How tall am I? I believe I'm 5'10". What is your least favorite YouTuber? I don't know because I don't go out of my way to watch YouTubers I don't like. Like I can't recall any YouTuber I watched and was like, "Wow, fuck this guy, he's the worst human being on the planet." I'm not vengeful or vindictive enough to care. Like if I'm indifferent, the worst I would get is indifferent to their content. Not I'd be like, "Well, this is like the worst guy ever." Like you don't ever watch him. He's terrible. Like I've never had that vibe. Even amongst the ones I've met, I've never met any YouTuber where I was like, "That guy's a fucking asshole." Like I've never. Beyond Good and Evil thoughts. Haven't played it enough. I have it for OG Xbox, and I have the 360 HD remaster. It was released in Europe physically as like a collection, so I got that. But I haven't actually sat down and played enough of it. I probably should do that. It's also now backwards the 360 version is now backwards compatible with the Xbox One. The Dreamcast didn't kill itself. Sega did, with the lack of understanding that you can't keep burning your audience and your market with terrible financial decisions. You can't support a console for a year and a half, drop it, and then switch to the next one, and then switch to the next one, and switch to the next one, and expect them to keep coming back. The Dreamcast wasn't unsuccessful in of itself. What happened to it is the parent company, Sega, simply ran out of cash. Largely what kept Dreamcast going for as long as it did was, I can't remember his name. It was a Japanese guy. It was like Isao something. I don't remember his name. I've put it in a video somewhere. He was pretty much just donating money to Sega constantly to keep the Dreamcast alive. I think he put something in like $900 million of his own personal fund just to keep it floating. And then he died. And they like a week later they had to pull up shop because they're like, "We just can't keep going. We just don't have the money." And that's pretty much what did it. Lou Malnati's or Giordano's. Both are Chicago-style pizza places. Lou Malnati's offers deep dish. Giordano's offers stuffed. It is a different type of pizza, which if you live in Chicago or you spend enough time here, you start to learn the difference. Like there's all sorts of different types of crusts: thin crust, thick crust, hand-tossed, stuffed, deep dish, etc. And cracker crust, which is fucking bullshit. Don't ever eat that. But when you actually get into it, it's no longer just let's order a pizza. You're like, well, what style? And if based on that style, where from? So the short answer to your question is I prefer Lou Malnati's, but if I was like, oh, I want stuffed and not deep dish, I would go to Giordano's, which happens pretty regularly. Have I ever played any obscure Sonic game? Sonic Pocket, Game Boy Color, or Neo Geo Pocket. That one I played. Thank you. We have Isao Owaka. Thank you, Chris. That's the guy I was talking about, the Japanese dude. All the Y2K Dreamcast games suck. Do you mean the 2K sports games? Because there's no Y2K as in like the Millennium 2000 bug games that exist, as far as I knew. Chicago or New York pizza, and why? I'm gonna go. It's gonna sound biased because I'm here, but I'm gonna go with Chicago only because, well, first of all, I prefer the style of pizza, but it's also a cultural difference. When you're in Chicago, we don't. We will say like, yeah, I've had better deep dish in Chicago. When you're somewhere else, that's fine, but we don't openly try to compare every type of pizza to our own, where New York does. Like if I'm having thin crust somewhere, I'm not like sitting there like, you don't know what you're doing, man. Thick crust. This is the only kind of pizza, and it's much better. It's like, no, no, I wouldn't do that. In fact, I don't even do that unless I'm asked. Like my buddy Shane Rerez, we have actually gone to places called like Chicago style pizza in like Philadelphia. And because he's never been to Chicago, he openly asks me like, how does this compare? And I'll tell him this isn't as good. But with New York style, it's like whenever you talk to a New Yorker about the pizza, wherever they are, it's pretty much just scoffing at how bad it is and how inauthentic it is. And I've been to New York quite a few times. I've had their pizza, and don't get me wrong, it's good stuff, but it's essentially triangles of grease, and it's good. It's good triangles of grease and cheese. I like it. But if you're asking me which I'd prefer to eat, like if you put both in front of me and said which one do you want, I'm probably going to go with a specific type of Chicago deep dish style pizza. But that's because that's my personal favorite. Thoughts on Christina Aguilera's voice? That is the first time I've ever been asked that particular question. None. I don't listen to her. In fact, I'm surprised I even know who she is. I think it's because my sister used to listen to her in the 90s. I am musically retarded. I know nothing about music. A lot of people yesterday were talking about George Michael's, saying like he died, and I was like, who's that? And then people are like, oh, he's a musician. I'm like, oh, no wonder I don't know. Deanna the Legend is off to bed. See you later, dude. Fucking send me a private message on YouTube, please. Scott the Canadian, I was there with you at Chicago Style Pizza. We even shared a pizza. No, I'm not talking about the one in Hamilton. Scott's talking about the one in Hamilton. There was a place in Philadelphia. Now, here's the other thing. Scott knows this is true. It's like we went to the one in Hamilton, and you heard him. I was telling him, this is good. This is stuffed pizza. This is not deep dish. Because the place is called Chicago Style Pizza. I was actually from there. I want to give him some context. But he also knows because he's been here. So he's been able to eat stuff like that. And so I was like, it's just as good as stuffed pizza I've had, but I still prefer deep dish. So that's why I rank it higher. So Scott knows I'm telling the truth. Are you having any of your consoles RGB modded? I have had some in the past, and there may or may not be some upcoming. We'll just go with that. Have you ever seen the Accountant movie? I don't think so, no. Am I excited for the new DuckTales? I didn't know that was a thing. Thoughts on 2D or 3D? In what context? In movies, 2D for sure. I hate 3D. I think it's a fucking distraction. I'm like, no, I hate glasses. I don't want this. Just stop it. I just want to watch the movie. So I go out of my way not to get 3D versions of movies because one, I don't even enjoy it, and they're more expensive. It's like, why the fuck would I do this? Chicago style thin crust is the best pizza, says Jim. I'm unfamiliar with exactly what that means just because there's so many different varieties. So you'd have to actually, like, So hand tossed is what a lot of people think of as when they just say pizza. You know, it's like with Domino's shit, which, ugh, God, don't eat that crap. That's what most people think of as pizza. And that's just like regular crust. Thin crust is super thin with really dense cheese and dense meats and all that stuff that you put on there. If that's what you're talking about, yeah, that shit's really good. I'll still personally take deep dish though. If DC went to Sony, do you think DC would have not died in 2001? I don't know if you mean DC as in the comic books or Dreamcast. And if we're let's analyze it both ways. If Dreamcast went to Sony, do you think Dreamcast would have not died in 2001? I still don't understand what that means. If DC Comics went to Sony in 2001, would they still have died? I'm gonna either way. DC Comics did. I mean, the only comic book franchise Sony had was Spider-Man, and they royally botched it. So they probably didn't handle that too well either. And didn't their latest movie just bomb? Passengers? Didn't that tank? I think Scott, you were the one telling me about that. Have I ever been to Japan? No, I have not. I would very much like to go. Does Sega own Atlas? Yes, they do. Wasn't Adventures in Babysitting filmed in Chicago? Yes, it was. Most John Hughes productions were. I think only his latest stuff, or his last stuff, I should say, like Made in Manhattan. No, Manhattan, New York. But pretty much everything else he ever did was shot here. And I know that a lot of people, like a lot of those places are real, like, you know, where they shot, and like houses and everything. Like that somebody owns that house, and you can go film, you can go like take a photo with it. Like I've actually been to the Home Alone house. That's here. Not only have I been outside of it, I've been inside of it because my mom's friend was like the neighbor, although they weren't at the time of either of the movies were being made. And so they get it all the time. Like, can we check out your house? Yep, fucking you can check out the house. So I was in there a long time ago. Like I was a little kid, but I have actually been in that house. Joe, Fox has Fantastic Four. Sony does not. Sony only has Spider-Man, and now they only have like partial access. They used to have Thor, and they never went ahead with it. And so the rights reverted back to Marvel, and then Marvel turned it into what they did. And that was one of the reasons Sony clung on to Spider-Man so much, was because like, oh fuck, apparently you can even make an uncommon comic book property work. Marvel's been doing a very good job of kind of silently getting a lot of their characters back. Like they got Daredevil back, they got Punisher back, they got Ghost Rider back. I think most of those were in Fox's hands. They got Hulk back. People don't even realize he wasn't in their possession. Universal had him. Now that Universal has like some partial connection to him, but for the most part, Universal hasn't been interfering. Sony quasi has Spider-Man. It's only Fox really who's got resistance because they have the X-Men. They have Fantastic Four to some extent. We don't know how long that's going to last. And they have Deadpool, which is technically part of the X-Men, which is why I guess they have him. Fox has never given that shit up. They have no reason to. Sony's situation was totally different because they had to put a Spider-Man movie out every 2 years to retain the control of it. And you had to essentially always use Spider-Man, so it was really hard to push that many productions. With X-Men, they have the same problem, but they have so many different characters they can work with. They can fulfill it constantly because they're like, we won't do the big ensemble movie this time. We'll do just the Logan movie or whatever, or we'll do Deadpool and we'll fulfill it for another 2 years. You know, so they're not going anywhere unless there's some sort of comic book movie explosion of failure where people just don't want that shit anymore. Best James Bond actor. Sad truth about me, I've never been into James Bond stuff. Never. GoldenEye, the video game, I love. I never gave a shit about the movie. I've seen a bunch of those movies. A lot of the Pierce Brosnan ones. Saw Casino Royale. I saw some of the older ones too. I just never cared. I don't know what it was. You'd think I would. You should think it would be right up my alley, but I never really liked it. Have I been to the Family Matters house? No, I have not. Will Marvel ever get Fantastic Four back? I assume they will at some point because Fox can't seem to. They've done it 4 times. Fox has tried 4 times, including the Roger Corman version, to make something with Fantastic Four, and they never get it right. Not financially and not critically. And I think at some point they'll cut some sort of deal because you have to remember Fantastic Four is controlled, not owned, but controlled by Fox, while Disney now controls everything else in Marvel. And those are 2 big companies that I'm sure would love to make trades with each other. Like I know that Fox wanted to make an X-Men show. I think it's called Legion. It is actually happening. But in order to make it, they had to get Disney to sign off on it. So they probably traded them something. So a lot of people are speculating they might have traded them Fantastic Four kind of under the table, and they're just waiting to announce it for whatever reason. That's just speculation. But they might have traded them something else. We don't know. But basically anytime Fox wants to expand or do anything with X-Men, they have to go through Disney. So at some point, they're going to give them back Fantastic Four. And the thing is, I don't think Marvel wants Fantastic Four for the Fantastic Four themselves. I think they're pretty much scorched earth characters for at least 10 years, but their villains are useful. Especially in the MCU, they can be quite useful, which they don't have access to until Fox hands them back over. So, but until I think that even that shit Fan Four Stick thing satisfied their contract for like 7 years, something like that, because the terms of their deal are different than what Sony had. Have I seen the teaser trailer for Blade Runner 2049? I have not. I honestly, here, another thing you guys probably won't like about me, I don't give a fuck about Blade Runner. I've seen that movie a few times. I've seen a few different cuts, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. I never liked it. Maybe I should try it again, because the last time I saw it was at least 10 years ago. But currently, no, I don't care. Do I like Tarantino movies? Not particularly. I enjoyed Kill Bill 1 and 2. I enjoyed Pulp Fiction the first couple of times, and then I saw it again later. I was like, I really don't like this that much. I did like Inglourious Bastards, though. Doctor Doom versus Avengers needs to happen. It's possible, man. Why do I travel so much? All right, you guys want to hear a story about traveling? Because this has been the most insane year of my life regarding traveling. So usually, when I travel anywhere, it's in very limited reasons. Like I would go to Canada once a year just kind of for the fuck of it, because I feel like, I know that not everyone can do this, but I feel like it's good to leave your own environment every once in a while. It's good to hop into another country and just kind of see how, I don't want to say the other half lives, but it's good to see other people's perspective and to see new things and just experience other cultures. Even if, again, the US and Canada aren't that different, but it's like, it's just good to be in another country and just see stuff like that. And just be exposed to another culture's environment, right? That's how I feel. So I would do in Canada as an American, especially someone living in Chicago. I'm only a 5-hour drive from the border. It's not that hard. So I would do that once a year to satisfy that kind of requirement. But that was usually all I ever did. And then this year was insane because now my girlfriend, as I'm sure a lot of you know, lives in Europe. So every once in a while we get together, which means I either go there or she comes here. Meaning North America or Europe. Sometimes she comes to the US or she comes to Canada because it's easier to get into Canada, or I go to Europe because as an American it's really not hard for me to get there. We just kind of meet up. It's way easier because there's only so much time that you're allowed, because you're not a citizen of those respective areas, so there's only so much time you're allowed to stay there. Plus you got to work and make money and all that. It's expensive to travel, right? So that's at best the two things I would ever do. But this year was insane because a lot of conventions out of nowhere were like, hey, do you want to come to our convention? We'll bring you out. You can be a guest at the convention. So that took me to places like St. Louis. It took me to New Jersey. It took me to Philadelphia. It took me to Toronto a couple of times, 3 times actually this year. And I've been to Toronto 5 times total this year. Stuff like that. And then there was a lot of press events where they're like, you know, Ubisoft in particular was like, hey, do you want to come check out this game? We'll fly you out. You can play it. And if you want to make videos on it, you can make videos on it. And so those would always be in places like San Francisco, or they would be in Los Angeles, or in one case, it was in fucking Paris. And so they just kept inviting me to all these things. So this year I've been on a plane since I'd say June of this year. I've been on a plane like every fucking 2 weeks going somewhere. In fact, there was one time where I was so pressed for time, I had to go to San Francisco for one game, and then I would have had to fly back to Chicago, wait in O'Hare, our airport, the big one, for 3 hours before boarding my flight to St. Louis. And I was like, I'm going to die because I'm going to spend all night, you know, being awake. And then I have to go to a convention on no sleep and just, you know, be a persona. So Ubisoft did me a solid and let me stay an extra night in San Francisco. And then they just sent me straight to St. Louis, even though they really didn't have to do that. So because of that, it's been insane. I've been traveling a lot because of that. That's not normal, though it keeps happening. Like I'm going to Atlanta next week. High Res Studios, the guys who make Smite, they're bringing me out for their convention. Then 2 weeks later, I'm going back to San Francisco for another Ubisoft thing. As far as I know, that's it. I don't think there's anything else. Nothing else I know is happening until like August. I know I'm going to St. Louis for the Missouri Game Con, but that's all I know. But I swear, you know, like every once in a while I'll just get an email like, do you want to come to this thing for this purpose? So I do it. That's why. It's not usually like this. Sorry, that was a long answer. Why are there more Sega Master Systems in Canada? Probably because it did better there. I mean, like relative to population. I don't know if it actually sold more units, but considering how much smaller Canada's population is, there's probably more common per capita. That's my guess. Sega Master System just got screwed by the NES because the NES, Nintendo in particular, in the States, had like a stranglehold over developers, basically being like, if you don't make games for the NES, if you make a game for the NES, you can't make it for any other competitor in North America, at least the US. I don't know if it applied to Canada or not, but I haven't heard about a whole lot of exclusive Master System games up in Canada. So I don't know. Maybe their stranglehold wasn't quite as strong, even though they got the same library. They might have just been able to get more copies or something. I'm just guessing. I honestly don't know. Will I visit Dubai one day? I'd love to. I've never been invited to Dubai. That's an expensive endeavor. So, Dead or Alive 2 on Dreamcast or Xbox. I've played it more on the Dreamcast, but I'm sure the Xbox version is better. Do I like the Persona games? I never really played. I'm not into RPGs. Will I adopt you? No, I will not. What the hell is that? We got some spam from Saddam Hussein. Somebody take care of that. What do you like? What one do you like, New Jersey or Canada? Well, Canada's a country and New Jersey is a single state. It's funny, I actually went to two of them only like a week apart. I went to New Jersey for AVGC, a video game con, and then like a week later I went up to Toronto. I think it was for the Waterloo Game Swap. I definitely, honestly, I have more fun in Toronto. Partially, I just like the area better. Now I know it better. I've been there 5 times this year. Collectively, I've spent about 5 weeks there this year. So I know the area pretty well, and you also get to experience a lot of stuff you simply can't experience at home. The only thing I could experience in New Jersey that I can't experience at home was fake, authentic New York pizza. that was it, because everybody's like, yeah, it's totally real, it's totally authentic, and it's not. But that was okay. Other than that, it's all stuff I know, you know. Favorite SNES game, either Super Mario World or Donkey Kong Country 2, probably. Do you have any favorite Wii games? All right, the one game on the Wii I legitimately enjoyed playing a lot. Not surprisingly, Mario Kart Wii. Do you know why? Because I didn't have to use the magic wand. I could just either put in the Pro Controller or a GameCube controller, and it just fucking played. It was phenomenal because I didn't have to deal with any bullshit. That I liked. But no, aside from that, like even the best quality titles on there, I just couldn't get around to. Shenmu AM2 podcast. Sorry, dude, I meant to get back to you about the podcast. Hit me up. We'll figure something out. I'm extraordinarily busy. Like after this, I'm literally doing a podcast for another channel like today, and then actually tomorrow I'm off to Wisconsin for a few days, and then I get back and it's New Year's, and then I go off to Atlanta for like a week, and then I come back, and then I go to San Francisco. You see what I'm saying? Like I have a nutty schedule, so just it's not like I'm trying to not get a hold of you. I just, you know, shit happens. I'm sorry, I totally missed your question. It was about James Rainier. James Rainier is my buddy. He does live in New Jersey, so get him something that he can't get in New Jersey. That's the best I can tell you. Yeah, I don't know. Get him something he can't get in New Jersey. I don't know where you're from, so I don't know what would be the most appealing. What other channel? If you're talking about my other channel, I work on a few. The other channel I'm best known for is Game Society Pimps. It's a comedy game channel, so it's all game footage with comedy. It's not live action stuff like this, with a few exceptions. I do stuff for Blame Society Films, which is like, they used to make Chad Vader, if you guys remember that, and Beer and Board Games was their show that I work on, and also Machinima I work on, but I just make videos for them from time to time. If you've seen them, like Celebrity Walking Through, Christopher Walken plays a video game, Morgan Freeman, President Obama, now President Trump, or President-elect Trump, play a video game, etc. We do those. Dude, don't get him ketchup chips. Those things are fucking gross. Sorry, Canadians. Those things are nasty. Yeah, he's James has been to Canada for the first time only a few months ago. He was only there for like a weekend. I guess his girlfriend lives up there. So he was just experiencing a lot more of the basics. I would get him stuff that doesn't suck. Like those Mars maple bars you guys have are really good. Better versions of stuff we have, like Kit Kats. American Kit Kats are shit compared to what the Canadians have. Assuming you're thinking candy. Get them some Swiss Chalet. That shit's amazing. Will I ever upload sitcom style videos again? I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Who is Adam? Whoa, this guy. If you were in a video game, which one would it be? I will be somewhat in Shenmue 3 as one of like the capsule toys. So we'll go with that. I have been an NPC in a Dreamcast game called Orion's it was Zia and the Magical Princess or something. I'm sorry, I don't remember the full name. Orion Soft made a Dreamcast game. It was an RPG. I did a video on it. You guys can check it out. I'm an NPC in that game. You can actually talk to me in the game. In my video, I show footage of it, so if you're interested, you can check that out. Do I like Star Wars? Yes, I've done multiple live streams about it. Yes, I know James was on the podcast. I didn't have a chance to listen to it. I'm sorry. Referring to the Shenmue AM2 podcast. Do I like the Clone Wars? Yes, I do. That's a really good show that I think is getting a lot more respect now. I think a lot of people didn't really want to watch it when they just thought, oh, it's more prequel era bullshit, especially when you have to really understand episodes 2 and 3 to get into it. But it also does a lot to explain all the terrible mistakes in those movies. You realize, oh, this was just a setup for something. Clone Wars pays it off, where the actual films didn't. And it just does its best to fix a lot of the plot holes, and it's canon too, which is great. It is technically 7 seasons. It was basically 5 completed seasons. Then Disney bought Star Wars, or bought Lucasfilm during the 6th season. So the finished episodes were released through Netflix at some point, and then there were 7 episodes incomplete, but they were all like their sound work was done, but only they were only in prototype visual stage. And so Disney decided to release the completed episodes as a season, and then decided to later somewhat release the other 7 episodes as like a free thing you could watch on YouTube. They're canon. These 7 like prototype episodes are canon, and they're considered season 7. There's no arc to it really, because it was just extra stuff they hadn't finished, but it's worth watching, though those 7 episodes are kind of tough just because of the animation, but the stories are good. Am I ever coming to Bristol in the UK? I have no current plans to. I was in the UK a few months ago, but I'm pretty sure I was never in Bristol. Sonic 3 and Michael Jackson. Yes, one of the best kept secrets about Michael Jackson, I guess, was that he was doing music for Sega stuff without his name being credited because they couldn't afford to pay him, but he just really wanted to do it, so he just did it with a fake stage name. So he did a lot of the music for Sonic 3. Do people recognize me in real life from my channel? Primarily at things like conventions and press events, where those kind of people who would watch me actually congregate, yes. But I have been recognized just literally on the street. It's not common, but it does happen. Are you uploading this live stream as a video? Yes, as soon as it's done, it will process and it will be a viewable stream. Do a video talking about Rayman on the Jaguar versus PS1. I wouldn't know enough about that that wouldn't really be a thing that I would cover with extensive knowledge. I know the game was built for the Jaguar, but and it was eventually ported to the PS1. I'm sure the PS1 has certain benefits to it, as I'm sure the Jaguar does, but I couldn't tell you what they are. How much space does your collection take up? A lot. Would you like to see X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Okay. So this is going to be an actual discussion here. Not Fox's version. It's too far gone. The universes are too integrated and too separated. You couldn't bring them together and have it make any real sense. But I will say this. I think it's kind of, I know this is going to be sacrilege, but I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise that Marvel can't use the X-Men in their film universe. Now, let me explain that. I am not a comic book super fan. I'm not the guy who's like, oh, I really preferred the comics. I didn't read them. Okay. I'm more of a film person, but I know enough about film structure and all that to tell you, like, the X-Men are they work because that universe, there aren't other things really. If you have superpowers, you are an X-Men, that's why. Whereas in the MCU, superpowers are very rare, and that's what can make you an Avenger. But if the X-Men are real, why does Spider-Man, for example, matter at all? he would just be presumed to be an X-Men. Like, his origins are different. He didn't get his abilities the same way. It's not a genetic thing. It was, he fucked up his own DNA by getting bit by a spider, whatever. But that story can be told once. Like, there's one story, you know, where like the X-Men are a big team of, you know, crime fighters, whatever the hell you want to call them, super team, whatever, and like fucking, you know, somehow some super villain's able to like shut off the X-Men genetic code temporarily. Therefore, all the X-Men are down. And then Spider-Man or Captain America is still useful because they aren't affected by that. That's the only story you can do out of that, in my opinion. So I think it's kind of good that you can't fuse them, because imagine what Captain America Civil War would have been like if the X-Men actually were part of that universe. It doesn't mean as much because there's too many superpowered characters. I know that you can get that to work in the comics. I don't think that really works in a film. So I think in a sense it kind of worked out that they can't do it. But I don't know. I'm sure people will disagree. Do I ever come to Rockford, Illinois? I drive through it a lot. I'll be driving through it tomorrow. Should I be celebrating Boxing Day? Oh yeah, congratulations to the Canadians. I'm sure a lot of countries do. Boxing Day isn't really as much of a thing in the States. Boxing Day is like, I guess I would call it Canadian, although apparently it's also British. Black Friday. It's the day after Christmas when everybody's like, okay, here's all the shit we didn't sell. Let's get rid of it all. I'm kind of amazed it's not that popular here, but maybe it's just because people have fatigue by that point here, because every day from Black Friday until Christmas is basically Black Friday here. Do I have any ambitious plans for the channel? Not particularly. I'm just kind of going the course, you know. I never expect to be like a big blown up YouTuber. Like, that's not going to happen. And that's fine with me. So I'm cool with where I am, but I just kind of keep doing content I'm interested in making. Like, I tried a live stream just for the fun of it, and you guys liked it. You asked for more, so here we are doing another one. I was going to do other things today, but then I realized it's the 26th, so everything's closed. So all the things I needed to do, I actually can't do. Too Many Food, what's up? He says he just got to Illinois. Yeah, the dude's hanging out in Metropolis, Illinois. I've never been down there, but the one thing I know about it is it has a Superman statue. It's the only thing I would understand being of any interest down there. Is Fox's Deadpool movie part of the Fox X-Men universe? Yes, it is. Did I have a good Christmas? Yeah, it was fine. Hung out with family, made food, ate it. We don't do conventional Christmas food anymore. We used to do like the ham, the turkey, that kind of shit. Even did a Christmas goose once. That was hilariously terrible. But we just decided, you know what? Fuck it. We don't even really like that stuff. Like, I like turkey fine, but I can have it at Thanksgiving. I don't really like ham all that much, and goose is fucking shit. Don't ever eat it. So we just decided our favorite thing to make is this thing called chicken fricassee. It's like a Cajun dish, you know, New Orleans area stuff. And we're like, fuck it, that's what we're going to make. We fucking love making this shit. Fuck everyone else. I don't care. I know their family. Fuck them. I don't give a shit. I'm going to make this because I love eating this. So that's what we make every year for the last few years. And that shit turned out great. It's like the only thing I actually cook because I fucking hate cooking. Do I like Jet Set Radio Future? Yes, I do, but I prefer Jet Set Radio, the original. Econ says he loves the channel. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys actually being here. I just want to take a second to say thank you for dropping in on the stream here. And I hate to ask you, but would you guys mind liking the video? I hate asking you. You know I do. I'm fucking doing it because YouTube's fucking making me tell you to do it. Otherwise, nobody will ever watch my content, which I have to ask you to do. It makes me feel like an asshole. But please, if you have a chance, if you enjoyed any part of this, can you just hit the like button? It's right there. I can see it from here. Thank you. Or not. Either way, up to you. Are viewers or fans too demanding? You guys are not, if that's what you're asking. I appreciate that people care enough to ask, you know, are you going to do this? Can you do that? Whatever. There's only ever been a few fans who I thought, like, you have no right to be asking me what you're asking me, or you have no right to be making the suggestions that you're making, etc. But that's very, very rare. You know, under things of like threat of not wanting to watch me anymore unless I make the channel exactly their way. And I'm like, who the fuck are you? Why are you even talking to me? You know, although one of my favorite all times wasn't this channel, but it was my other channel. Again, Game Society Pimps, where, we, as I mentioned before, we do these like celebrity comedy videos, right? Where like, we'll take a video game. For example, we just did, most recent one we did For Honor, and Donald Trump is playing For Honor. That was the video. And so an example of like that was that this guy basically looked at our videos and he's like, yeah, I don't like all the Christopher Walken throughs anymore. They used to be better. So what I've decided to do is cut you guys out. And he didn't mean like he was going to stop watching us. He was like, yeah, I'm going to cut you guys out. I'm going to go around you. I'm going to talk to your actor, a guy named Jason Stevens. He's like, I've already talked to him. We're going to be working together. I'm taking over the show. I'm sorry. Think of it like a corporate takeover. And I was like, who are you and why are you talking to me? And then I talked to Jason and he was like, yeah, that little twat or twat, whatever British people prefer that I pronounce it as, was trying to get control of the show. And I'd laugh my ass off and said like, good luck or something. So it's very rare to find someone like that. But yeah, it's for the most part, no, I genuinely enjoy when people make suggestions and stuff. I obviously can't fulfill all of it, but you know, I like hearing what people are thinking. Where do I buy t-shirts? All over the place. You know, I used to buy them on a lot of websites. Or at this point, I don't really buy too many t-shirts. A lot of t-shirts I get are just like free promotional things, because I go to all these like press and conventions and stuff. But if I actually actively buy a shirt, it's usually at some place like Target or Walmart, because they usually have surprisingly good like nerd t-shirts in there for pretty cheap. The last time I considered just buying a t-shirt was not too long ago. I was over at Foot Locker. I had to buy new shoes. I buy new shoes like every 5 years. I'm not into shoes. I know there's sneakerheads and all that stuff. That's never been my thing. I respect people who are really into that stuff. It's like me in video games. I'm sure they can look at me and be like, how the fuck can you care about so many plastic games? Who gives a shit? I do. But there's other people who really respect you know, sneakers and stuff. Anyway, so I went down to go get a new pair of like Jordans, because that's what I buy, not just because Chicago, but also I've always had Jordans. I like Jordans. They're quality shoes. And so I was like, I'm going to go get those. And while I was there, it happens to be this year is the 20th anniversary of Space Jam, you know, the movie. And so they had all sorts of Space Jam merch, like hats and t-shirts and all that kind of shit. And I saw this t-shirt and I was like, oh, that looks great. I'll go ahead and I'm going to get that. I'm just going to buy a Space Jam shirt. It looks good. So, you know, I'm at the register and they scan the shoes, and those are expensive, which you expect, but I only buy shoes like every, you know, 5 years. So it's fine. But then they scan the t-shirt and I'm all of a sudden like, why is the price so high? Why did it, like the grand total, why did it jump so much? And I take a quick look over the t-shirt and I'm like, we're talking a t-shirt, just a regular ass t-shirt. It just has Michael Jordan in the Toon Squad jersey and he's like going for a dunk. Like that's all it is. I'm thinking this shirt costs like $10, 15 absolute tops. $50 for a fucking t-shirt. And I was like, no. I was like, yeah, no, sorry, I had no idea how much that shirt cost. It was my bad for not looking at it, but in what world would you expect a t-shirt, just a fucking regular ass t-shirt, to cost $50? And I was like, does this t-shirt come with a fucking blowjob? Because this is ridiculous. So I said, no, sorry, can you take that off? I don't need that shirt. And she tried to talk me into it. She's like, no, you know, it's actually, if you buy the shoes, it'll give you a $10 off coupon, so you can come back, and anything over 50 you get $10 off, so you can come back, it'll be 40. I'm like, it's still $40 for a fucking t-shirt. No thanks. So I just got the shoes. But I was like, God, that's like the last time I tried to buy a fucking t-shirt. Do you own any Guinness World Record gaming editions? Not that I'm aware of. I know there's a guy named Ryan Gino. I don't know if he's watching. He's Canadian. He's the Airzonk world champion. I know he's got the Guinness record for that. I know that guy. I was told he has a bunch of other records too, but I don't know what they are offhand. That's the closest I can get to that. Damn, dude, that's a cheap blowjob. Good line. Well, I didn't say it was going to be a good one, you know. Why do I have headphones on? I guess I don't really need them, but, you know, the mic disables all computer sound except through the headphones, so I guess I don't really need that. But hi Adam, I just wanted to take the opportunity to tell you that I really enjoy watching your series on video game consoles. Good stuff. Thank you. I appreciate that. Would you like Spyro to get the same treatment Crash is having right now? Yeah, why not? He was another character that fell into the wrong hands too many times and got screwed. Nice to bring Spyro back, just like Crash. Am I a Lord of the Rings fan? I am not. Let's just leave it at that. Do I like Doctor Who? I've never really watched it. My buddy is like way into that shit. Who's my favorite Virtua Fighter? Honestly, I never really liked Virtua Fighter that much. I've said this before. I was always more of a Dead or Alive player, and it's like one might be like, oh, it's because the Dead or Alive chicks, they're so hot. Why don't you play like as the guys in Virtua Fighter? Like, I don't care about any of that shit. Like, that's icing. Who gives a shit? The actual gameplay of Virtua Fighter games I always found too stiff and rigid, and I never really enjoyed it. Whereas I always found the gameplay of Dead or Alive to be very smooth and fluid, and it was just much better fighting game experience. Do I believe in the Illuminati? No. I believe in Lumelnati's. It's a fucking pizza place. That's what I believe in. Loving the live stream. So what's your life outside of gaming? Work. I appreciate that you like the live stream. No, I work a lot, dude. I don't really have much time to game as much as I like. The gaming I get to do is usually work related. So it's kind of like when you watch a movie in school, it's like it's nice to be doing that, but at the same time it kind of takes away from actually going out and watching a movie on your own, if that makes any sense. Do I like Harry Potter? Yes, I do. I like the 8 movies. I have no understanding of that cursed child thing. Isn't that like a screenplay, or wasn't it like a play, like an actual play that she kind of transcripted to a book, so it doesn't really read quite the same. But I'm not familiar with the story of that at all. World's biggest fan says I'm your biggest fan. Thank you. Gee, I wonder if there was any clue in there. Or you just say that to everybody, you slut. Big Bumpin' is the best Burger King game. I disagree. I will go with that Pocket Bike Racer or whatever that was. That was a lot more fun. Although, I gotta say, there's something really fun about Sneak King. Such a ridiculously stupid concept that they actually made this creepy stalker guy who just gives burgers to everybody. That's fucking insane. Thoughts on the Assassin's Creed movie? I haven't seen it. Like I said, I hang out with a lot of people from Ubisoft whenever I'm out in San Francisco or whatever, and I kept asking them if they had seen it. None of them had, so I don't think they have any idea at that point if it was going to be any good or bad. I've heard it's atrocious, which is unfortunate, because I've said this too. I think that somebody is going to make a good video game movie at some point, and it's going to blow open that market. And I don't mean a fun one like Mortal Kombat. Yes, I love Mortal Kombat. It's 90s nostalgia all over again, but it's not a very well received or very competent movie. It's just fun. So somebody's gonna make one that's like well received and can win awards. Assassin's Creed looked like it could have been in that position, but apparently failed miserably. So who's next on that list? I know there's another one coming up. I just don't remember what it was. What's the funniest video game you ever played? It depends, because like, you mean like the comedy of the game or the experience of playing it? Because I mean, I do a video game comedy channel, so a lot of the worst games are the funniest. And I guess I would have to go with, it's gonna sound like a weird answer, Cabela's Dangerous Hunts 2011. That is the funniest fucking game ever made, because you persistently can't believe it's a real game. It takes about 3 hours to beat. We did all in complete playthrough of it. It's the funniest thing ever. I highly recommend watching that on Game Society Pimps. It's called like Angry Hunter, Cabela's Dangerous Hunts, or something like that. In that game, you're obviously a hunter, and like, it becomes so insane. You're walking around like a safari, and every animal is just trying to murder your ass, like to the point where you're literally this part where you're like at like an abandoned building, like where you would expect like, you know, soldiers to be. But instead, there's not soldiers, there's chimps. And the chimps don't have guns, so they throw, I'm not even kidding, they throw feces at you. This is real. And it takes itself seriously. It's insane. And at the end, it's the final villain of the entire game is a fucking hyena. Not even like a special hyena, just a hyena. Have I played Dead or Alive 5? I've played the shit out of Dead or Alive 5. The Ratchet and Clank movie was actually good, and the game based off it was awesome. I heard the game was really good, but I heard the movie actually really sucked. But I haven't seen it. But look forward to that. Sony will probably make a lot more video game movies. I talked about that in the last stream, how they're trying to get up rights to a lot of, I think, of Sega's games to make movies out of. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to make a big bankable franchise. It could be Sony. They might be in the perfect position for that. But as a film studio, they're pretty fucking stupid. So I don't know. I hope that they pull their head out of their ass, because I'd love to see good video game movies. What's your favorite game made by PETA? Do they make games? I had no idea. Hey Adam, love your videos. I am interested in getting a Saturn. Can you show us your Saturn setup to your HD TV? I would love to mirror your Saturn equipment. Dude, it's just a Saturn, RGB cables, like hooked up into the FrameMeister. Just watch my FrameMeister video. There's nothing really else you need to know. Do a Britney Spears impression. I can't. They would come out sounding like Mickey Mouse. You should do the same video of you eating deep dish pizza. I guess I should get some sometime and I'll eat it on a live stream. You guys want to see that? We'll do that. Do you plan on traveling to Brazil? Are you curious about the Master System and Genesis Brazilian exclusives? Dude, I'd love to come down to Brazil. But the problem is your country doesn't have visa waivers with mine. So for me to actually get there, the flight alone is insanely expensive. Things like hotels, all that would be extremely expensive. But also I have to get visas, so I have to do background checks, and I have to go through all this shit. I have to go visit. There's a Brazilian, I don't think it's an embassy, but whatever the consulate. There's one here in Chicago, thankfully, so it wouldn't be that hard to actually do that part. But they'd have to approve me, and you got to pay for that. And then there's very limited amount of time I'm actually allowed to stay in your country because of that. Like, if I were to stay longer than a few weeks, I have to prove I have some insane amount of money. Like, I don't remember what it is, but it's something like $70,000 to $100,000 has to be sitting in your bank account, and you have to show it to them. You have to prove you have to give them access to your bank account so that they can prove you'll actually come home back to the States. You won't stay in Brazil as an illegal forever. So getting to Brazil would be a massive undertaking, and I don't have enough of a reason to go. So yeah, that's my situation on that. You guys had lifted it for the Olympics. There was a visa waiver there for a while, but you reinstated it, unfortunately. So can't go, not anytime soon anyway. Favorite Metal Gear Solid 1 or Twin Snakes, which is of course just a remake of it. What do you think about Platonic games and ukulele? I was very interested in ukulele until when it was in the Kickstarter phase, but then they were like, oh, it's going to be digital only and stuff. And I was like, fuck it, I don't care. Then later they were like, oh, we are doing physical. So now I'm interested, but I wish they had announced that earlier, because I would have loved to back them when my money would go to make the game better, like Shenmu, as opposed to going to just recoup production costs or something. Also, they canceled the Wii U version of that, and they're switching it over to the Switch. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I kind of feel like the same thing is going to happen with Bloodstained, the Castlevania spiritual successor. That's currently a Wii U game, but it's slated for like 2018. I can't see them actually making that. So we'll see. It might get fucked and switched over to the Switch. Well, it pissed me off because I backed it specifically for the Wii U, and whatever. Scott the Canadian has returned. Welcome back, you fuckface. Were you off getting Swiss Chalet? What were you doing? What's open right now in Canada? I imagine, ironically, more things are open right now in Canada because of Boxing Day than they are in the States. Like, a lot of stuff's closed here today. Stores are open, but business things, or government operations like post office and all that kind of shit is closed today. Am I concerned about the outcome of Shenmue 3? Yeah, until I've played it, I have no idea if it's going to be any good. It's going to suck if it comes out and it's terrible, and I have to be like the guy who confesses in a video like, yeah, it sucked. I'm sorry. That sucks. I didn't make it, but, you know. What do I think about Minecraft? I don't think much of it. Obviously, it's a very powerful game, in the sense that it's, a lot of people love that shit. But I never really got into it. How do you go an entire live stream without belching or farting? I don't know. You get that all out of the way first, man. It's like peeing before you get in the car for a long drive, or taking a shit before you get in the car. I don't know. Yeah, I know what Boxing Day is. I'm just explaining that it's not as I said earlier, it's not as common in the States. Just because we kind of, by the time Christmas is over, we're like, oh fuck, I am so done. But yeah. If the Sega 32X blew up the world, would you still like Sega? No, because I'd be dead. Does the carpet match the drapes? Yes. My hair is uniform. Look at my face, dude. Think about it. Favorite N64 game? Probably GoldenEye, but Conker's Bad Fur Day is really solid. Star Fox 64, stuff like that. What's my favorite SpongeBob episode? I couldn't tell you if I can remember any. Like, SpongeBob came out really late in my childhood, so I only saw like the first season or so before I was kind of like past that point. What do I think of the Yakuza series? Very good spiritual successor to Shenmue. Very cool that Sega's finally giving it more love in North America, although they never really properly did it. Like, Yakuza 5 got a digital release translated but never physical, so I didn't buy it. And I guess Yakuza 0 is getting a physical release. I think I pre-ordered it actually. But Yakuza 6, I think we still don't know. Or is it coming out? Someone just said, what do you think about Yakuza 6 coming out? Is it coming out here? If so, great. Is it physical? Great. Even better. Mexican food is really big in Chicago. Do you have any favorite Mexican restaurant, or do you not like the food at all? I fucking love Mexican food, but I'll say this. Mexican food in Los Angeles and in Texas, infinitely better. Not surprising. But yes, Chicago caliber stuff, as he points out, there's a surprisingly high Mexican population in Chicago. You wouldn't expect it. There is a history behind that. Apparently, Mexicans were invited to come up and live in Chicago during World War II, basically, honestly, for labor, to construct, parts for vehicles for the war effort. And then, of course, they stayed, which is, what we agreed to, and that's great. And because of that, there's a really great Mexican population here with fucking awesome food. My favorite chain of burrito places, if you want to call it, or Mexican restaurant chain in Chicago, is a place called Los Camales. You can look it up if you want. There's a few of them in the suburbs. That's whenever I need a burrito, like, fuck, I need a burrito. That's where I go. Los Camales. Do I like Conquer Live and Reloaded? Yeah, but not as much as I like the original. Like, the remake wasn't as exciting to me. Is there a dev kit you wish you could own? I guess I'd kind of like the OG Xbox, like, transparent crystal development kit. That thing's pretty cool. I'm not really into collecting development kits. I mean, I have to really like the console. Like, I have a bunch of the Dreamcast ones. I have the debug Xbox kit, the green one, but the full-on development kit, I don't have that. Have I ever tried playing GoldenEye with Game Shark? You turn off door clipping so you can use the entire facility. Western cameras. Yes, I've played it many times with Game Shark. Yeah, walk through doors. I've done that many times. Do you think it's too late for Nintendo to go mature eccentric with the Switch? I mean, I wouldn't go out of their way to, make, like, visual, like, horror porn, but, like, I think they could use some maturity in there, at the same time making the stuff that always made them successful and get third party. I mean, Nintendo could crush it if they were really confident enough in themselves, but I think they don't want to do that. What time is it in Chicago? It is 4:35 at the time I say that, p.m. What do you think about Wii U homebrew hacking or console hacks in general? I'm for it. I don't do it myself. I'm sad that with the Wii U, you have to do that to get region-free ability. Because I would love to have a region-free Wii U, because I got all these imports and I can't use most of them. Rarest game in my collection, I'm honestly not sure. That's, again, something you got to really think about. Mountain Dew Edition Xbox, ugliest console ever. It's entirely up to your personal opinion. Like, I did a video on that console specifically, so you can get a good close look up of it. I like it, but I also like the Xbox, so that's kind of warping it. It's kind of it's a weird puke green, I admit, but what did you want? It's supposed to look like Mountain Dew. Have I ever wanted to create my own game console? No. Thoughts on the slasher genre of film? I don't really think much of it. I was never a huge fan. I'm not opposed to it by any means. It was just never a passion of mine. Favorite PS1 game? It constantly switches between Metal Gear Solid and Twisted Metal 2. Twisted Metal 2 was for sure the answer when I was a kid. But now as an adult, probably Metal Gear Solid. Have I ever been to Video Games New York? It's an amazing retro current game store in Manhattan. No, I have not. The closest I would have been to that was earlier this year. I landed in Newark, which is in New Jersey. And so you could see Manhattan really easily, but I didn't actually go over to New York City at that point. I haven't been to Manhattan itself since like 2001. I was there in August 2001, like right before 9/11. I was there, but last time I was in New York State was like I crossed from the Canadian side of Niagara over to the American side of Niagara just to like, oh, I'm in New York, and you fucking leave immediately. The American side of Niagara is a national embarrassment. It's so awful. Like, I genuinely feel bad for us as a country, Americans, that is our representation of the United States for any tourist that comes to Niagara Falls, Canada. Niagara Falls, Canada is basically Canadian Vegas meets Canadian Disneyland. It's like it's like this big amusement park Vegas type of thing all at once. And it's fucking great. It's awesome. You cross to the American side and it's a shithole. Like, let me tell you the story of this. So I was with my ex at the time, and she and I crossed over, And, you know, when you do border control, you know, you have to, first you pay a fee just to go across the bridge. And then you get there, and then they go through the normal security questions process. Now, we're citizens, so it's no big deal. But they basically ask us, like, what are you doing over here? And we're like, yeah, so we're spending time over there. We're going to check out the American side. And she literally, the fucking, like, security woman drops the whole, like, tough, I'm security agent thing. She's like, oh, jeez. She's like, you'll be back over in Canada in 5 minutes. And I'm like, why? She's like, it sucks over here. And I was like, really? Like, we just want to go get a t-shirt at the gift shop. She's like, if you make it there. I was like, okay. So then we get out of the security area and we go towards the gift shop. And it's a shithole. It's like a desolate, it's like everything you imagine a shithole slum to be is that area. And God, it sucks. You know, you get over to the actual like gift shop there and you feel like you're gonna get stabbed like every 10 seconds all the way there. We get inside, or we try to go inside and the door's fucking locked. They were closed. The woman didn't tell us they weren't actually open. Maybe she didn't know, whatever. So we're like, all right, where can we go? And some guy saw that they were closed. They had just closed. And he was like, yeah, if you're looking for touristy stuff, there's like a gas station down the street. You can try that. And I was like, all right. So we walked down the street. And I shit you not, in the time we did this, we saw not one, but 2 people fucking peeing in the street. Like, there's one guy just standing in the street just urinating. Whatever. And then, like, a minute later, I'm walking down the street. We're almost to the gas station, and a fucking car just drives, like, across the road, like, up onto a curb, smashes into a tree. You're like, oh my God, we just saw a car accident. Fucking guy gets out of his car, and he's like, ugh, and he just fucking whips his dick out and starts pissing. I've been in Niagara at that point for, like, 5-8 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. And then we get around him, basically, get to the gas station. The guy's like, yeah, we don't have any of that type of stuff here. He's like, there's another one down the street. And we start to go, and the whole walk down the street, we're like, oh, we are so going to die. Like, there's just people like in shady corners around, and we're like, we're going to get mugged at any second. So we finally get to a place that has some stuff. The guy has to buzz us in because they only allow one person in the store at a time. This is the kind of neighborhood we're talking about. You get in there and he's like, all right, you know, we figure out what we want. We literally we were holding up an I Heart New York shirt. And he's like, I Heart New York. He's like, why would you want this? And I'm like, because we were over in Niagara and we can't wait to get the hell back there. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, this part sucks. And we're like, yeah. So we got it. And I remember walking back, and my girlfriend, or ex at the time, now an ex, but at the time, I remember her comment. We're both American citizens. And her comment was, I can't wait to get back to Canada where it's safe. That's exactly how you feel. So I feel bad for anybody from another country who visits Niagara, Canada, and then goes like, I'm going to see America. And they see the fucking anus hole of America. It's fucking awful. New York, get your shit together. Make the American side not a train wreck. Anyway, sorry, long rant. Do you like Sonic on the Master System? Not really, because I didn't really like the Game Gear ones either, and it's essentially exactly the same games. Sounds like Indianapolis was the comment in regards to Niagara. I haven't spent enough time in Indianapolis to say. You do a lot of work for your other channel, Game Society Pimps in Madison, Wisconsin, right? How far is it between Chicago and Madison? It's about a 2.5-hour drive. I will be making that drive tomorrow. Do I have a gaming PC? You could game on the PC I'm broadcasting this on. I simply choose not to. I don't have any interest in PC gaming. Is it true Sony tradition? How much money is Sony worth now? Are they still at 17 billion? I don't know what their exact net worth is right now. I know that they're hurting. It's complicated because everybody wants to grossly simplify a situation that quite simply isn't, because you're not talking about cash assets. You're talking about all things, all assets, and those numbers change the discussion. It also doesn't factor in debts and, day-to-day business operation costs, what the incoming and outgoing is, etc. It's very convoluted to just simply say, oh no, they got 17 billion, they're fine. That's a fucking grossly inaccurate statement. I'm not saying that you're making it that way. I'm just saying it's a hard thing to explain because most people don't have the patience to really understand economics. Thoughts on Telltale games? I like them a lot. If you guys didn't know, I did. They Jurassic Park the game and Back to the Future the game. I really like those so much that I captured the footage of those games. I cut them into narrative films. They're on this channel. They're not part of the Quick Shoot series, and you can watch them as full movies. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get in trouble. Telltale's gonna be really mad at you." I got thank you emails from the development team at Telltale saying we all shared it around. This is amazing. It just proves that the story we told actually works as a film. We genuinely want to thank you for your efforts. So. They ain't pulling the fucking Content ID claim, I assure you. What car do I have? I have a Jetta, Volkswagen. Do you like ROM hacks? I can find them amusing, but I don't sit down and actually play a lot with them. Advice for pill poppers? I don't know. Stop or don't. It's up to you. What do I think about Sony half-assing on the Pro and the PSVR? I assume you mean in regards to like what the Scorpio is going to be. The short answer to that is Sony can't afford to make a Scorpio. They just kind of gave you something that is improved and will maybe hold them over for a little while, because I don't think Sony even really knows what their economic plan is for a while. Unlike Microsoft, if the Scorpio fails, Microsoft is not going to affect them all that much. If the PlayStation 4 tanked right now, if everybody just stopped buying PS4s, Sony would be bankrupt within a year. So it's maybe even sooner, because that's the only thing holding them up. So they literally couldn't afford to take that big of a risk. So they just kind of gave you a console to hold you over while we kind of figure out what our plan is. They just want to keep the PlayStation 4 momentum going, and unfortunately for them, they don't even really understand what it is that's getting it there. Nobody does. Nobody knows exactly what it is. It's a series of factors. And if you don't believe me when you say, "Oh, of course they must know why it's working," go Google it yourself. They disagree. Thoughts on the 6 dislikes? It's now 8. Thank you very much. You could like the video, you could dislike the video. Honestly, guys, they both have essentially the same effect. I need those because that's what YouTube is saying that we have to tell you now, that like videos, that's what helps them. And I appreciate if you do it or not. It's up to you. But a dislike has absolutely no effect. Dislikes usually come from people who, there can be legitimate reasons, of course, to dislike a video, but generally it comes from someone who's like, that's going to be what I do. I'm going to contribute by ruining it. He's going to be so mad. Because no fucking adult cares enough to do that shit unless the video really legitimately sucks. But I would assume, as someone watching this stream, you would know what to expect from me. What else do you think this is going to be? It says it is what it is. It's a live Q&A. You choose the subjects, and I answer you. What else did you want? Martin says he loves these videos and he's saying hello to everyone. Hi, dude. Sonic Heroes. My thoughts on that. I didn't play it that much. I had the Xbox version as a kid, and I don't know. I never really got into it, and I never really went back to it. I hear the PS2 version of that is really broken, and that the GameCube and Xbox versions are better. Probably more so the Xbox version because it wasn't limited on space the way the GameCube version was. Why do I think the PS4 does so well? I think a lot of it had to do with momentum at the beginning. Like, Microsoft went through a fucking terrible PR nightmare at the beginning that they had a really hard time recovering from. And then it just kind of continues. It snowballs from that, because when everybody has a PS4, well, I want to play with my friends, I'm going to get a PS4. So it just kind of builds off of that. And of course, at the beginning, they came out with a more advanced piece of technology that was $100 cheaper than their competition. I mean, like, it was all there. Now it's starting to shift a bit, but Xbox has a long ass way to catch up. And unfortunately for Microsoft, it's a complete wash in Japan. They'll never, ever, 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 ever compete there. Europe is a toss-up, mostly in the UK. The mainland Europe is pretty safe Sony territory. The UK can kind of go either way. And North America is starting to switch over to Xbox, but we'll see how that plays out. Who knows? Why is Chicago so windy? It's not. I mean, it is, but that's not why it's called the Windy City. Windy City actually refers to windbag politicians. We have a history of that. Why Nintendo don't put out Pro version of the Switch? The fucking regular version isn't even out yet. Favorite Atari Jaguar game? I don't know, dude. There are quality games on there that I know of. Things like Rayman, of course, was really solid on there. I'm suddenly spacing on a lot of the rest of the library. Like, there's a really good version of Doom on there and stuff like that. Force Awakens and New Hope is in the same movie. No, but you're not far off. Again, I did a stream on that. I'm not going to go into more Force Awakens. Favorite Star Wars video game? Star Wars Battlefront 2, original Xbox. Second favorite would either be Star Wars Battlefront 1 or Star Wars Force Unleashed. Ever got a Metra without a ticket? I don't really ride Metra. I ride the CTA. I never really have a reason to ride the Metra. Metra goes into the suburbs, which I never really have a reason to do because I have a car. Do I think Nintendo is arrogant? Yes, but not in the traditional way. I think they're not doing so well that they feel untouchable. I think that they're just so OG that everyone's going to just come back to them regardless of what they do. That's how they're operating right now. That's a little bit different, but essentially it's still arrogance. Why was the PSP so popular despite being $300 but not the Atari Lynx? What? PSP, first of all, wasn't even really that popular. Second of all, Atari Lynx obviously wasn't. Are you saying they both cost $300? Why didn't they work? $300 in like 1989 is a lot more than $300 in like 2001 or 2002 or whatever it was. Plus, Sony had more of a trust at that point. Or Atari really didn't. That's like, scratching the surface there. Where is Nintendo on your top 10 video game companies? I assume you mean companies. Pretty high up because there's not that many console manufacturers, if that's what you're asking. I don't know exactly. Maybe number 2. Thoughts on 6th gen game prices rising? Called it? I've said that many times that would happen. Dreamcast stuff is out of control now. A lot of GameCube stuff's up there. Certain PS2 stuff is up there. OG Xbox for the most part is cheap, although getting harder to find, not because it's too expensive, but because people are getting rid of it. Like, they can't sell it. That's the same problem the PlayStation 2 is running into, except it has certain titles that are expensive, but a lot of stuff people are just like, fuck it, I don't want to sell this. You're never going to be able to sell these copies of Madden 2003, so they just throw them away. Do I collect pop vinyls? I do not. The only one I have is Marty McFly with the Time Machine DeLorean. I only wanted it for the Time Machine DeLorean. I didn't care about Marty McFly. Not that I dislike the character. I just don't care about pop vinyls. I just wanted the car because I like the car. How long does it take to clean a PS2? Watch my video on that. That will help. Thoughts on Tech Toys' new Mega Drive? I still don't understand why that's any different than any of the other ones they've been doing for the last, 20 years. Why is the new one special? Is it just that the mainstream media finally heard that Sega was still doing that? And that's why people are like, oh my God, it's crazy different. It's like, no, it's not. They've been doing that for 20 years. If there is actually something about it that's different, tell me. I'm interested, but I'm yet to get that answer. Why did they call it Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube? Because they added Chow support, and they added support for the link cable with Sonic Advance 1. So it could kind of act like a VMU, so there was more gameplay functionality that didn't exist in the Dreamcast version. Favorite fighting game on the Saturn? Maybe Dead or Alive 1. It was only released in Japan, but that game's pretty good. What's your favorite Chicago Bulls game you remember? In recent memory or all time? If we're going all time, you got to go Jordan's last game against Utah, Game 6, 98. That, he wins the game with the fucking last shot he ever shot for the Bulls. Fucking phenomenal. If you want to talk about recent games, I'm going to go with it was like 3 years ago, like 2013, the Nate Robinson game, I think it was, when Nate Robinson single-handedly willed the Bulls back into the playoffs. They should have been eliminated, or basically on the verge of elimination, and he won the game for them. And he scored insane amount of points and brought them into a third overtime. That game was insane. I actually downloaded that game and watched it again. It was nuts, because even the commentators are talking halfway through the third quarter about well, we're gonna go back to Brooklyn. I think it was the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, we're gonna go back there and hopefully the Bulls can win one and keep it alive. But it seems like the series is over. And then out of nowhere, Nate Robinson just goes off and he scores something like 25 points in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, which I guess they said he was the third person to ever do that. The other two being Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and for some reason, Nate Robinson. That game was unreal. What aspect of PC gaming do you like? Well, I don't game on PC, but I will say I do love the modding capabilities. That's been very useful on Game Society Pimps for narrative storytelling purposes. So that's pretty cool. But is it enough to push me over? Fuck no. Do I like the Hatsune Miku games? No, I don't. I'm indifferent. I know Sega puts them out, which is cool, but like I wish they'd put out something I would be more interested in. Do pirated games increase the chances or increase the console sales of example sales for the PS1? That's an oddly worded question, but I assume you're saying, do pirated consoles help sales? They'll help you sell more hardware, but not software. I mean, debatably, some software will help be sold because somebody might be like, oh, I loved it enough to go back and buy it. But for the most part, that doesn't really help. Why did Derrick Rose never fulfill his potential? He got fucking injured all the time, man. It's too bad. The dude was an MVP, and I saw him play in person. I mean, like I said, I got this signed by him in person. I saw the game that I got this signed at. He won it with a buzzer beater, and I said I was in the footage of that. Someone actually found the footage and put it in the comments of the previous stream and said, "Is this you? I think I see you." And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." So I'm in there. That was amazing. So he was a phenomenal player, and unfortunately, his body just failed on him. That's nothing you can really do about that. Have I ever played Star Wars Jedi Academy? No, not really. What games you currently looking for on what systems? Dude, that's a long list. I don't know. I'm always kind of looking for stuff I just don't have for certain consoles, but it's never like there's this one that I'm really fucking itching to get. Favorite female Shenmu character? Probably Nozomi. Is the Hyperscan cleaning video coming? No. I don't have a Hyperscan, nor do I even want one. Like, I might take it for free, maybe, but I have not really, it would just take up space. Have I thought about collecting Laserdisc games? The only one I have is Pyramid Patrol for the Pioneer Laser Active. I'm good. What is Figured Out Productions? It's my production company. Best Mario game. My personal favorite, I assume you mean? Still's gonna go Super Mario World SNES. Do I think base game prices will go up? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. What was my experience with the Shenmue documentary? So the guy making it, Adam Scipione, he came down to Chicago to interview me as well as a few other people. So we filmed a bunch of footage, and then after that, Shenmue 3 was announced. So a large part of what we had talked about is like ways in which Shenmue could possibly come back, which was now useless information because it actually was. So the next time I was up in Canada after that, we filmed it at Shane Rerez's house, and he asked me new questions, and I shot a bunch of new material. Uno's or Luminati's for deep dish pizza? I actually haven't had the actual Uno's in Chicago. Luminati's I fucking love. It's easily my favorite. Problem with Uno's is because it's just the word one in Spanish. You can't really own that name. So there's a lot of fraudulent places called Uno's all over the country that claim to be the real thing, and they're fucking not. So if you're ever like, oh, we're in Pittsburgh and there's a place called Uno's and it's Chicago stuff. No, it's not. It's fucking bullshit. It's fake. It comes out of a freezer. That's not real. But the authentic Uno's I've actually never been to either. I really should try it. Justin says I should try something sometime when I'm not super busy. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Justin. Yes, I know Ukulele was canceled for the Wii U. Do I own Breath of the Wild for both the Wii U and Switch? Oh, you mean will I own? I will definitely own it for the Wii U. I've had that pre-ordered for a while. And if I get a Switch, it would be illogical not to get it. Yeah, it's possible that it will get canceled for the Wii U. It wouldn't really surprise me. Is there a game console you absolutely hate? Yeah, I fucking hate the Wii. That's terrible, terrible fucking game console. Like if you're talking mainstream ones. See, it's hard to hate the failed ones. Especially when I wasn't personally burned by them. Like, people always want to say, oh, but the CDI was shit. How can you say that was better than the Wii? I'm not saying it was better than the Wii. It's just that it's a different situation. The CDI was never meant to be a game console. And I didn't buy when it came out. thinking, oh, this is gonna be this great game console experience. I bought it years later, knowing full well what it was. It's a fucking media player that like 6th on its priority list is to play some video games. That's why it really doesn't have any. But the games that do exist, you can play. It's got a bad controller, but even that SNES style controller is fine. There's just not anything really worth playing, so it's hard to judge it that way. Whereas the Wii promised to be this next-gen, revolutionary, amazing experience, and it fucking sucked. Most of the games are fucking terrible, and even the good ones, for the most part, are unplayable because they use that shitty wand fucking Wiimote thing. The only ones I liked, as mentioned earlier in the stream, was Mario Kart, because I could just use an actual controller. So that's why I hate the Wii the most, because it promised the most and delivered absolutely the least. Thoughts on the upcoming Crash Bandicoot remaster? I'm excited about it. As I mentioned before, previous stream, you know, I loved Crash Bandicoot 3, so I'd be most interested in seeing that one again. But you know, I enjoy playing the whole thing. That'd be fun. Do I have any Saturn imports? Yes, I have 31 of the 32 PAL exclusives. I'm only missing one. And then I have a bunch of Japanese stuff, but not too much of the Japanese stuff is really worth a damn. It's just a lot of stuff I got in penny auctions. That was an odd question, so I'm not asking it. If Shenmue 3 fails in sales, will we see more Shenmue games? Probably not. I think Shenmue 3 is kind of do or die for that franchise, because it waited so long, and we built up so much trust, and they're like, well, we'll be there to support your game, and if we're not, and we were largely with the whole Kickstarter and everything, but if we're not there, if it doesn't sell well enough, I don't think it has another chance. Because part of what made the Kickstarter so successful was the anticipation, the wait, you know, for 14 or whatever years it was. And you're not going to get that with a Shenmue 4. Even though Yu Suzuki was on record saying he wants at least a 4th game, he would prefer a 5th. So it has to sell well enough to self-fund. And I hope it can. Otherwise, it'll just be nice to get a 3rd one, and then probably accept that is where it ends. We'll see. If I ever played Deadly Premonition, yes. We did a video on it, actually, on my other channel, Game Society Pimps. You can check that out. It's pretty fun. Weird game, but it's fun. So I see people pointing out, no, but the Wii, when it's soft modded, then it's good. Fuck that retarded logic. That's so dumb. I'm sorry. What you like is what hackers gave you. That's not what Nintendo gave you. By that logic, you should just use a gaming PC. Like, it can play NES. Great. So can an original Xbox that's modded. So can a Dreamcast with a fucking boot disc. Your PC can do that. There's a million different ways to do that. It's not still a good console just because hackers gave you something that made it less awful. It's still a fucking pile of shit. And by the way, do you actually try to play those things with a Wiimote, or do you swap over to some sort of controller in most cases? If the N64 used CD-ROMs instead of cartridges, how much better in sales would it have done? I don't know, man. Probably a lot, actually, because a lot of the best Nintendo third-party developers switched over to Sony and to a lesser extent Sega because of the use of cartridges. They probably would have stuck around with Nintendo if Nintendo had been smart enough to use CDs. But the whole reason they use CDs is long and convoluted, and it involves the Nintendo SNES CD prototype, which I've actually held that actual, if you've ever seen it, like there is actually a single prototype of the SNES CD, and I own it, or I don't own it, I've held it in my hands. I know the guy who owns it, the guy Terry Diebold. Really nice guy. But yeah, he was a fan of me, saw my video, and I saw him at AVGC in New Jersey, and he let me actually hold it and take pictures with it and stuff. Fucking awesome, dude. I put a lot of footage in there. If you follow me on Instagram, you can actually see the pictures. You can also follow me on Twitter. I think I just did it there, or my Facebook fan page. All those things. If you guys don't know, I have all those type of social medias. Feel free to go follow me. I post all sorts of dumb bullshit on my Instagram, photos of food from countries or whatever that I go to, or like whenever I get random promotional video game items, I put pictures of it there because they're not really worth making whole videos about. So there's a lot of stuff like that I post in those places. Or if you just want to kind of every once in a while, if I'm like, oh, I need tech support, I go to Twitter, or I'm like, hey, make sure you check this out. I'm on Facebook. So if you aren't following me on those places, up to you, but you could do that. Thoughts on Rochester, New York? I'm not sure I've been there in a really long time, if I have ever been there. Will the Switch flashcard concept become the norm for next gen? Assuming there is another generation, we don't know. You know, it entirely depends on how it sells. I would bet no. I would bet that they'll probably, Sony and Microsoft, if they even do other hardware, will probably be digital only. That would be my guess. Nintendo, it's a tough call. I've been saying this literally for years. Like, you go back and look at my channel, there are videos that go back years where I predict most of the things that turned out the way they are. Granted, there's obviously discrepancies because, you know, I don't have a magic crystal ball, but it's just I'm following the economics, and generally that's how these things go. Favorite Shrek movie? Shrek 1. Although I really liked Shrek 2 and Shrek 4. The only one I really didn't like was Shrek 3 because I fucking hate Justin Timberlake, and set him aside for being in that movie. It still wasn't a competently told story. Do my parents watch my videos? My family doesn't even know what the fuck I do. Like, except like my youngest cousins, some of them understand at least the base concept of like video games on the internet to movies, whatever, and he does that somehow. But for the most part, I have to like I can't really explain what it is to do YouTube work. They don't fucking get it. And one cousin in particular wanted me to lie to her children about what I do because she said, quote, I don't want them thinking that's attainable, which I guess I should have found insulting, but I don't. Because if you really take my job and you describe it, it sounds like what a 12-year-old would make up as a job. Like, oh, I get to, you know, play the video games, and I get to talk on the internet, and I get to go, people fly me to things, and I get to play more video games, and then I make money. That doesn't sound like something that's real, but that's what I get to do. It's fucking great. I mean, there's more to it than that, obviously, but that's one aspect of my job. Are there any PC exclusive games that you wanted to play? Yeah, of course, but you got to draw the line somewhere. I don't play young PCs. I just don't. Could the Saturn have succeeded? Yes, had the 32X not existed. It would have been possible. Or vice versa, the 32X could have been successful had the Saturn not existed. Problem with that people never understand is that in North America it comes off as really confusing, especially because we had both of them pushed really hard. Less so the Saturn, ironically. But in Japan, the Mega Drive, aka Genesis, was nothingness. It was not a relevant console for the most part. So when Sega of America proposed the 32X as like the logical successor, so we can have 32-bit, but we can shift people over like backwards compatibility, but at the same time they'll have the new gen technology, and then eventually we can do like a 32X all by itself that does play Genesis or Mega Drive stuff, but it's not required or whatever. Sega of Japan wasn't in favor of it because they had no logic in bringing the Mega Drive fan base over, which is why at some point I think there must have been some middle ground where they're like, the Saturn will play Genesis games, because some prototype pictures of Saturn have a Genesis slot instead of the memory card slot. But ultimately Sega of Japan calls the shots, and they decided they were going with the Saturn. But in North America, they thought the Saturn wouldn't work because it was too hard, it was too complex to work with, and it wouldn't allow them to bring over this massive fan base. But so they went with 32X for a while until eventually Sega of Japan said, no, drop it, go with the Saturn. So as a result, you had too much hardware and it exploded in their faces. Why Chicago Bulls is the only team that unites black and white people in Chicago? That question's fucked up and not even accurate. It's a very, very fucked up question. And it's not accurate either. Could the Dreamcast have lasted longer? Yes, if it had had more money. We kind of talked about that earlier. So listen, guys, I'm probably going to go for like another 15 minutes and then I'm out of here. Just so you know. Because I got to do a podcast, I think in like an hour. So I need to kind of recharge. Do I like soccer and soccer games? No, I don't really care. I'm an American, dude. Soccer is nothing here. Do I smoke? No, I do not. Was the mini NES Classic a smart move by Nintendo? They made money on it, didn't they? Do I listen to Chief Keef? I don't know what the hell that is. Thoughts on light gun style games on the Wii?
I think that's one of the best things about the Wii, actually, is that it took a lot of these games that were incompatible with modern televisions for light gun purposes, and they kind of updated them so that you could do that, which is nice, but none of them ever really captivated me all that much. Like, that would not be a reason for me to be like, oh, great, I love the Wii now, because that's fucking not accurate. Am I streaming the podcast? It's not my podcast. I'm just going to be guest starring on a podcast. However, my podcast, the Patreon one, will be public tomorrow, so you can watch that then. And I asked if you wouldn't mind doing it, because those podcasts are fun to make, but I know not a lot of people watch them. Check it out. The description of them has time code and everything. You can go to all the subjects you like. Chip and I do it together. You should listen to it. Have I watched any TV shows this year? I'm sure I have, but nothing's really coming to mind. Do I like any sports games? One game, I mean, I liked a lot of the weirder ones. Like, I loved the Space Jam game for the PS1 when I was a kid. Doesn't hold up well at all now. I actually used to really like World Series Baseball 2K2 for the Dreamcast. I played the shit out of that. I'm sure there's a lot more like the fantasy type of sports games I've enjoyed more, like Tiny Toons Soccer and shit like that. But that's years ago. I don't really play sports games that much anymore. Scott wants to know, how do you plan on getting me more Mexicolas and video games soon? I don't. Come down to Chicago, bitch. Get it yourself. I smuggled because it's totally legal, but I smuggled like an entire box full of Mexicoke and Mexican Pepsi and all these other like real sugar versions of sodas like Dr. Pepper and stuff over the border to him, because it's way cheaper here than it is in Canada. And but you can't fly with that stuff, so I had my car, so I was up there like 2 weeks ago, and that's when I brought it. Where can I find your podcast? You can find them on YouTube, dude. There's a whole playlist, and like I said, the next one comes out tomorrow. For the longest time, it didn't have a title. It's now called the Figure It Out Cast. For the long title, it was like Patreon podcast. I don't know what the hell, because it's supposed to be a Patreon backer perk. I have a Patreon. So if you can get access to the podcast like the day after we record it, which is usually right at the beginning of the month. If you're a Patreon backer. If you're not, that's fine. You can see it later. It just comes out towards the end of the month. Ronald, what's up? Welcome, Ronald, everybody. My brutal Austrian admin. He's insane. Watch out. Yes, how do you plan on getting more German Coke? When I was in Paris, Mrs. Claus, she changed planes in Munich, so she picked up a few German Cokes for me and brought them to Paris. I've had my fix. I'm good for a while, but I have no further plans. Maybe you could, I don't know, send some. that might work. Probably not best to put it with all the other things you're thinking about sending though. Ronald's the man, guys. If you're in Europe, you ever need stuff modded or repaired, that's your dude. Contact him. Ronald, leave some more comments so they can hit you up if they need to. Hell of a nice guy. How many miles are on my car? A lot. Something like 140,000 miles. My car is really old. By now it's old. I think I got it in like 2003, something like that. Scott says I have to fix his currency. I would actually rather the Canadian dollar kept tanking. That's been great for me. I come up there, it's like a fucking massive discount on everything. It's amazing. So no, I'm not going to do that. Just spend more money and just come here. I'm sick of it. Tired of it. You just got to do your part, man. Do I plan on going back to Too Many Games, which is a convention, in 2017? If I'm invited, yes. It's very possible. As soon as I know, you guys will know. If you follow me on like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that's where I announce stuff like that, because I tried to announce these things in videos and people fucking hate it when I do that. So I don't really do that anymore. Like the convention I'm going to in Atlanta next week, I didn't make a video about it because they would have been like, fuck you, I don't want to hear this. All right, I won't tell you then. So you can follow me on those social medias, and that's where you'll find out that kind of stuff. When am I doing another video with Scott? I don't know, Scott. When are you coming to Chicago so we can do another fucking stream, you bitch? I just did one with him like 2 weeks ago. It was a live Q&A with him and Shane Rerez. That was fun. So we often do them there because, Shane's house is all set up for that kind of thing. His internet connection's solid enough. I'm there. They're both already there, so it makes sense. If you had $1 billion, would you do Chad Vader? You mean like, would I make another season of it? I'm sure I would. I'd be like, Aaron, here's your stipends. Why don't you go ahead and make another season of Chad Vader? Like, I don't know what. Like, if I had $1 billion, there's a lot of things I do. I don't know if making another season of Chad Vader would be a priority, but yeah, why not? Fuck it. What if Star Trek was in Star Wars universe? I'm sure a lot of fans' heads would explode. I always felt from a technological standpoint, like I find the question more interesting if you reframe it. Like, what would happen if like the Enterprise had to go up against a Star Destroyer? From a technological standpoint, the Federation would absolutely annihilate the Galactic Empire. Like, their technology is so much more advanced. But that doesn't mean I like Star Trek better. I actually prefer Star Wars, but you call it what it is. The technology in Star Trek is vastly superior for the purposes of war. However, obviously the Empire tries to be a faction of war where the Federation really doesn't want that. But Federation, depending on what timeline you're in, Prime Timeline I think is the better one, not the JJ timeline. At some point, of course, the Klingons are their allies. You send the Klingons at the Empire? Fuck. The Empire's done, son. I think a stormtrooper's going up against Worf? I don't think so. Granted, he's Federation, but you get my point. Hurry back and get to Canada. I was just there 2 weeks ago. I've been there 5 times this year. As mentioned before, I spent a collective 5 weeks in Canada this year. I spent over a month this year living in Canada. And about a month living in Europe, actually, when you combine it all together. Ronald says, I was in Bavaria a few days ago. Bought a shitload for you. Surprise! I assume he's referring to German Coke. If so, German Coke is the fucking best, everybody. German Coca-Cola. It's on another level. Like, you just can't compete. And kudos to anybody who's near Germany. You got the best Coke on the planet. Why is Chicago subway not under the ground? Why did they build a roller coaster? They did both, dude. It goes under and above. It's called the L. It can ride up in the city to bypass traffic, and it's aesthetically pleasing, but also it goes underground as well. It goes under the river. It goes out into the suburbs. It's up ground, above ground. It's all over the place. How much OG Xbox games are left for you before completing it? A lot. A lot. I don't have a number offhand. What would I do if I were in charge of Sega in the 1990s? Question why they employed a 5-year-old and then probably run it into the ground because I'm 5. If you're asking for like serious answer, like economics changes, I would have either found a way to convince Sega of Japan that I think what I would have tried to do is convince Sega of Japan to put a Mega Drive or Genesis slot into the Saturn. Really push that and say we won't do the 32X thing if you do that. I think that would have helped. I don't know if it would have solved everything, because from Sega of America's logic, it actually 32X made a lot of sense. It really did. And from Japan's perspective, the Saturn made a lot of sense. What didn't make sense was the same company releasing 2 different 5th gen platforms. That didn't make sense. France has German Coke, man. So lucky, says Remy. Dude, I had a Coca-Cola in France, in Paris last month, and it says on the bottle it was made in France. It's fine. It's Mexicoke, but not quite, because Mexicoke's in a glass bottle. Glass bottles make a huge difference with sodas. They really do. But French Coke was fine. It was better than American Coke, of course. American Coke is the fucking worst. Canadian Coke's really bad, too. Just American Coke's worse. But French Coke, it can't compete. Nothing can compete with German Coke. Nothing. Am I talking about regular Coca-Cola? No, I'm talking about German Coca-Cola. Unless to you, you're German, then it is regular to you. Did I complete my Sega Saturn collection? No. Saturn, I'm at the point with Saturn where it's like, you'd have to just go to eBay a lot. It's not fun anymore. So, the best score I ever had with the Saturn, I did a video on like almost 4 years ago. There was this store in Fort Wayne, Indiana that for some reason had a fuck ton of Sega Saturn games. Like, clearly all closed out from something. And they were just there, and nobody had touched them for years. So I went there, I picked up every game I needed, because they were all super cheap, too. And I did a video on it. And then Scott knows, we went there like 6 months ago. He came down to Chicago, and we drove through Fort Wayne, and we stopped there. and it was desolate. We were all gone. I think what had happened is a lot of people had seen that video, because I'd seen comments over the years where people went in and said, "Oh, I picked this up, picked that up." I think they got picked clean when people found out there was a ton of Saturn stuff in there. Yeah, Ronald, you promote whatever the fuck you want to promote, dude. Do I have problems with French when I go to Canada? No, because I'm in Ontario, and even in Quebec. I've never been to Quebec, but my understanding is if you go to Montreal, you'll be fine. Outside of that, you might start running into problems. But I didn't even have a problem when I was in Paris. You know, I have enough basic French to be able to start off a conversation where I can say, like, I don't speak French. Bonjour, s'il vous plaît, excusez-moi, je ne parle pas français. Parlez-vous anglais? Like, that's what I can say. It essentially means, hello, I'm sorry, please excuse me, I do not speak French. Do you speak English? And generally they do. And if they don't, they'll understand that you don't, and they're willing to play like the Google Translate games. I really never ran into problems, except for a postal worker who was a complete asshole to me. But everyone else was fine. It was no problem. And the first time I used that, though, I was at the airport in Paris, and I was waiting for Mrs. Claus. So I went to get myself like a sandwich. I'm like, I'm gonna get some French food at this like fucking bakery thing. It'll be great. And I open in that statement, and the guy just stares at me, and he's like, no. Like, when it says, like, he doesn't speak English, I'm just like, okay, fuck, now you have to get out my phone, we're going to figure this out. And he's like, then he just goes, no, I'm just fucking with you, what do you want? I was like, all right. I really didn't run into a problem that much. I speak more French than Scott does, and he's fucking Canadian, so there you go. That sentence is the only thing I know. Like, I know a couple individual words, but that's about it. Because I studied Spanish mostly as a kid. When do you think you'll hit 100,000 subscribers? My analytics at one point believed I would have done it by February. That is obviously impossible now. Problem with YouTube's latest changes is that every time you put up a video now, it does a mass unsub from your channel. As a result, subscriber growth is very, very slow now. At one point I was getting like 150 a day, then it was down to 100, then it's down to 50. I know some of that's like the channel itself doesn't have anything that's booming, which I get that. But even my slowest days, I was getting like 30 a day. Now I'm getting like 5 to 10, and it's because you put up a video just by that action. It's not people going, oh, that fucking guy, I hate him. Why am I still watching this unsub? That I get. That's fine if you think that's fine, whatever. But like literally, there's a glitch in the system. You put up a video, it will just unsub a certain amount of people from you just for doing that. So this stream being active means at least like 25 people have been unsubbed from the channel, regardless if they have anything to do with this video or not. So if you guys are ever like, whatever happened to that guy? I used to watch him. What happened? I'm probably still there. You probably just got unsubbed and you don't even fucking know it. So it sucks, but it's the way YouTube decided to do things these days. All right, so I need to get going here, so I'm going to come up with one subject question, like not just a fire power round question here. Then I got to go because I got to get myself ready for this podcast I'm going to be doing. So I'll give you guys a second, come up with something good, something deep, not just like, what's your favorite shirt or something, like something deep that we can actually talk about for a minute. And so it's going to be an awkward kind of sit here in silence a little bit, but I'll answer some little power round questions as they come in. How good is my Spanish? Es muy malo. No bueno. Solo estudiar español para 4 años en escuela. I'm sure my grammar sucks. Do I speak Portuguese as well? No. I know like 2 words in Portuguese. Hola and obrigado. Hola, hello, obrigados, thanks. That's all I know. Like, my girlfriend's Portuguese, she barely speaks Portuguese. She fucking hates that language. So, like, she hasn't encouraged me at all to try and learn it. She's like, you don't need to. Let's see here. Here's Scott with a really dumbass question. Who gives better hugs, Rerez or Mrs. Claus? Are you asking if my girlfriend or Shane, a person I've never hugged, gives better hugs? I'm going to go with my girlfriend. Just a little bit. Do I speak Japanese? No, I do not. Okay, here's one I want to talk about. Do you think Sony will release proper backwards compatibility for the PS4? Before I get into that, I will say this. When I think of proper backwards compatibility, I think of it more like the way the Xbox 360 did it. Actually, no, that's not even the best way. I think of it the way the PlayStation 2 did it. The PlayStation 2 probably did backwards compatibility the best, where it simply just had the hardware in there to play all the games from the previous generation. The Atari 7800 did it amazing. Same reason. Plays all 2600 games. Granted, didn't play 5200 games. But the Xbox One, for example, or the Xbox 360 had an emulator for original Xbox games, and it would update frequently, and it would just have like a next batch of games that worked, right? The Xbox One, though, is different in that it's got backwards compatibility, sort of. It cannot play your original 360 disc. It cannot do that. What it does is it's able to detect what disc that is and says, okay, is that game compatible? If so, it will check a server and it will download basically an Xbox One version of the Xbox 360 game. They built their own emulator in-house, and then they put the games in it, they can tweak it, and they make certain changes, and they essentially just clone that file to everybody. So that's not even really proper backwards compatibility, but it's nice that it exists. However, I believe, and I could be wrong, I know at one point this was definitely the case, I don't know if it still is, but with Xbox One 360 compatibility, I believe if you disconnect from the internet, it actually doesn't work at all. Like the games you downloaded, you put the disc in, it's already pre-downloaded and everything, it won't play the game. I think. I would have to double check on that, but I think it was that way at one point. So when we go back to the idea of Sony doing this with the PS4, the short answer is no, they're not going to do it. Sony doesn't have to. They're doing well enough that they don't have to try and buy your loyalty. Microsoft does, because Xbox One hasn't been doing well. That's why they give away 360 compatibility, because the 360 was a very powerful and successful console the last time around. So they're like, hey, if you're still on the fence or whatever, come on over. Like, all those games, they're going to start working over here now. You don't have to worry about that shit. And that's a nice bonus feature that they know that Sony can't offer, because the PlayStation 3 just can't be replicated on the PlayStation 4. Even the PlayStation 4 Pro can't really do it. They would have had to have built that in mind, which they didn't, because it was such an expensive thing for Sony to make. The PlayStation 3, if you look it up, it really hurt Sony, like really, really badly. Now they could easily get PS1 and PS2 games to run through backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 4. They won't. They won't do it. And the reason is they have decided they have backwards compatibility in a sense, where they decided to build a PlayStation emulator and build a PlayStation 2 emulator, and they have games that support it, but they force you to rebuy them. This would be very similar as if I don't know, what's a backwards compatible game for the 360? I don't know, just it doesn't matter. Pick any 360 game that's backwards. I don't know, BioShock, right? BioShock is compatible now. Now imagine if you took your BioShock disc and you put it in your Xbox One, and it says, oh no, this is backwards compatible, so it'll totally work. But before you can actually play it, you have to pay to unlock it. That's essentially what Sony did. They just didn't bother with the disc part. They said, hey, you can just go digitally rebuy your entire library that's supported. We're not actually going to give you the discs. And the reason they can do that is because the PS4 has been so successful that they don't have to give you that as a freebie. And I've been saying ever since Microsoft announced backwards compatibility, if that program was successful, and Sony's program of charging you to replay games you've already owned before was unsuccessful, then Sony might change that policy. But unfortunately, people are actually buying the fucking PS1 and PS2 replicated games. Therefore, they have no incentive to ever give that to you for free. If the PlayStation 4 suddenly tanked and the Xbox One started killing it, which you never know, we don't know what's going to happen this year, I wouldn't put it past them to be like, hey guys, remember the whole PlayStation Complete package? Sony, we're now unlocking PS1 and PS2. Come on in, play a game, whatever. That would be possible, but I can't see Sony actually doing it anytime soon, because quite simply, they don't have to. They can get away with charging you money because people are actually paying for it. So there you go. All right, guys, and with that, we're going to head out here. Actually, the Wii does not have the best backwards compatibility because they fucked up the component output. The GameCube does it better than the Wii. So, nope. All right. Yeah, all right. I'm going to head out here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you could, please like the video. Please go ahead and comment on stuff. I really appreciate you joining in and all that. You guys are the best. Stay tuned again tomorrow. My podcast will be up. I hope you guys enjoy that. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that bullshit, so you can see things like all the food pictures or weird promotional items, etc. that I post. But yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you all later.